Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, Justice Across Space and Time, Year 1, written by HanBaron. You can find his profile link in the description. Let's begin. Chapter 1. I went with the re-release of this series because when I first released it I was still learning. And it was my first story, so I stuck with it. Aside from that, I also didn't know certain details were canon that I now know. Anyway, time to start this over. No POV, the image view pans out over Earth and then leads to the sight of the Moon and Earth together. Then the view shifts and zooms to the Moon. Or rather the facility on the Moon's surface. A series of impressive buildings are scattered just beyond the Sea of Tranquility. From within these buildings a pair of people look out a viewport to see the Earth shining blue and at peace. The two are mostly silhouettes, but one is a well-built man and the other an attractive woman who floats around him. So, now that the next generation has made great strides, what do you think is next? She asks as she wraps her arms around his neck. I don't know. But maybe it's time we look elsewhere for things that need to be protected and people who could use saving, the man says while looking up at her and smiling. She gives him a skeptical look and says, "What exactly did you have in mind?" He gives a wry smirk and says, "I'll show you," and takes her to another room where a machine opens portal for new possibilities. Since I know most of us know the lead-up story with Izuku, I'm gonna cut to the meeting with Toshinori to keep it going forward. So do you think I can be a hero without a quirk? Izuku asks All Might. And to this All Might just sighs and looks down. Heroes face down all kinds of danger every day and there's no guarantee that they can save the day. So no, I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. As All Might says this, the look on Izuku's face shows that his whole world just came crashing down. As All Might is standing up, another voice calls out, "That's a pretty stupid and narrow-minded point of view, isn't it?" Both look around wondering where it came from, then they look up to see a young man standing on top of the stairwell door. He looks fairly fit and tall at about 6 foot with dark brown hair, wearing a t-shirt and jeans combo with what appear to be black boots and a belt with a large buckle. The thing that draws to both of their eyes, however, are the sunglasses he is wearing. They look simple in appearance, but they both notice they fully cover his eyes to where no extra light appears to come in. That is when the young man says his next point, "Pretty sure that just your injury talking there, dude." As the young man smirks after saying this, All Might has this look of surprise at him being called dude. While Izuku has an even more shell-shocked face than before at the fact that someone who looks as young as he is would call the #1 hero dude. After both have recovered a bit from the surprise, All Might says, while some of that may be true, it doesn't change the fact that they face danger every day. And a quirk is honestly the only way to do that. To the young man replies, "Then you have clearly forgotten that heroes existed long before any powers were involved. Let alone the fact that heroic intent is often defined by single acts or even spur-of-the-moment actions and movements." With this, All Might has a bit of a discontent look on his face, due to remembering his own origin and acknowledging, if only in his mind, that what the young man says is true. While this back and forth is happening, Izuku is just looking between them both in confusion. Until he asks, "Do you not know who this is?" He's All Might. The greatest hero ever. And the guy who was trying to let you down easy in the absolute worst way. The young man retorts, and you see that he struck a nerve with both. As they are still smarting from that retort, he pushes on with, "I may not know much about all of this, but from what I've experienced around, the powers, or quirks as you call them, seem to be the worst thing that has happened to humanity." After that, both have extremely shell-shocked faces at someone saying that, to which he presses on with, "Far too many are so stupidly wrapped up in their powers that they can't see anything else. Let alone the fact that the powers may be more detrimental than they think." This gets Izuku mad as he says, "You are in no place to talk. The only way you could have followed us is with a quirk of your own. Like a flying or super strength one that let you keep up with All Might. So how can you say that when you are just the same?" To this the young man pauses and smirks a bit, then stating, "You're not wrong that I have powers. But I never said I had a quirk." To this both are stunned, and before they can ask the obvious question he replies, "I'm paraphrasing a quote from Shakespeare, but, there are more things beyond your comprehension that cannot be defined by most sciences. I would say there are two bigger issues than even my origin and such. The first is that had you even considered what the kid might do given how garbage almost everyone in this society is when it comes to his condition and background, or were you just overly optimistic on what would happen? And the second and admittedly more pressing matter, did you even notice that the bottles with the slime guy in them were gone? To which All Might pats the pockets of his briefs and starts panicking. And then proceeds to run down the stairs. As Izuku is realizing that he must have knocked the bottles out, he starts to break down in a panic. The young man puts a hand on his shoulder to snap him out of it and says, "Since your original ride ran off, I can give you a quick lift down." Before even replying, the tall teen grabs him and jumps into an alleyway a few streets away. After coming down from the surprise, Izuku begins questioning the young man about everything. Predominantly his power and how he is quirkless with his apparent capabilities. The young man keeps tight-lipped about this, mostly just smiling at Izuku's inquisitive nature. As they are walking, they hear an explosion and smell smoke from another street. They run to another alleyway where multiple pro-heroes are dealing with the same sludge villain that had attacked Izuku before. The pros are all talking about how they can't do anything about the matter without harming the hostage. Upon hearing this, the young man just scoffs, saying in his mind, "So this is how the so-called pros, or heroes, look at things. Not only are quite a few of them not very creative, but I can already tell that none of them have quite enough of what it means to be a hero. And yet here we are, planning to make a point and statement all the same. Although you being stuck in this shape is a bit of a problem," a second voice speaks to him in his mind, to which he replies, "Don't remind me." As he's about to go in to do something, he feels Izuku rush in from beside him. No plan, no idea what he can do, his feet just started moving on their own. At this the taller boy smiles, knowing he is witnessing a true hero, not one defined by something he can't control, but one defined by this courage and actions. As Izuku is running, he takes his backpack and throws it at the sludge villain's eye and blinds him long enough to get close to Bakugo and try to pull him free. Bakugo responds with, "What the hell are you doing here, Deku?" To which Izuku's only response is, with a shaky grin, "You looked like you needed saving." In other versions, this would be where All Might would jump in to stop the villain after seeing a truly heroic young man showing him the truth he had forgotten. In fact, he is just about to do just that, when out of nowhere the other young man makes his move. His statement is simple: "I knew you had what it took to be a real hero, even if these idiots refuse to see it." With that, the young man unleashes a mighty punch that splatters the villain and even causes a change in the weather. Once his job is done, Death Arms tries to arrest him for illegal use of a quirk, to which he responds, "Why would I have something as worthless as a quirk?" Once they are all stunned by that statement, he says to Izuku, "I'll see you around, kid. You've got greater potential than you think." With that, he leaps up high into the air, and when a lady tries to catch him, a blue-skinned girl comes out of nowhere and seemingly winks them away. Not long after this, All Might comes to Izuku and tells him the thing he had been hoping to hear all along from anyone, that he too can be a hero. At this, he proceeds to tell him about his quirk One for All and how he wishes to pass it on to Izuku. Even while going on a mumble spree and eventually accepting All Might's offer, in a different prefecture the young man smiles and the young blue-skinned woman asks, "Something good happened with that boy, didn't it?" "Yeah, and I think we may have someone to relate to and work with to a point here. Plus, who knows, he may help fix the messed up version of humanity that has appeared here," the young man says with a small smile. It might be that justice still has a place in a world so badly warped. Chapter 2. To those who may be questioning my aggressive put-down of quirks from my OC lead, it is honestly from a point of seeing major problems with too many people having far too many powers. For anybody who has seen The Incredibles, Syndrome's speech about the fact that when everyone is super no one is a very good point and a problem that most of that world deals with more than they even care to look at. And it seems like their powers warp their minds as well, in contrast to the world of like the X-Men, where the mental problems or anger or similar are from experiences rather than the effect of their power. Two good examples are from the villains, where you get Toga, who is clearly influenced by her BLD-based quirk, and Tabe from the Yakuza, who has been warped by his food quirk drove him insane. And I personally dislike the whole cheapening of what it means to be a hero. I may get more into that for a later chapter, but that is not why you came here. You're here to read about a hero's growth and those who help him along the way. Also, as an aside, if something is in italics, that is me speaking or putting my thoughts in. Izuku POV, after I accepted the chance to gain All Might's power and to train under him, I began a painstaking path to improving my body. Because as All Might put it, if I gained the power and tried to use it now, I'd probably blast my arms off and die. So, I began my training to build up the power to inherit the greatest hero's quirk. During the 10 months to build up my strength, I noticed an unusual pattern with reports and the news. Every so often a big bust was being reported, both in country and a few overseas. Often by the time the heroes showed up, some other witnesses reported that someone had already taken down the criminal group that was the focus. There were a few heroes who tried to profit or take the credit for this, but later some of the same heroes were later arrested for other various charges. While many were disturbed and frankly terrified by this strange vigilante who was targeting all sides, who apparently had enough strength to take down large and imposing villains with little effort, many more were praising the fact that crime rates in certain areas were going down. On the flip side, there was a boost to heroes who had shown not just great compassion on patrols and such, but also in more quiet moments doing simple things like what I was doing for my training, cleaning up a location or even just helping in small ways. Another strange point for those heroes was how some of the villains were restrained or captured. A few of them appeared to be just tied up with ropes, string or, strangest of all, rings or bands of light. And the more curious part is the same thing tying the villains up disappeared when the police had them in the Maiden. Yes, that is what it was called when they arrested AFO. I kept thinking back to that strange guy who not only told All Might off, but also pulled off an attack identical to one All Might himself would use. But I had no time to mull over these thoughts much. I had to improve fast enough to prove I was worthy of All Might's trust in me. He may have said otherwise and told me I needed to rest so I wouldn't burn myself out, but I needed to prove it to myself. More than anything. And on the day of the entrance exam to UA I had done it. With a shout as I finished with the last pile of garbage to be loaded on the truck, I heard All Might exclaim, "Holy! Stinking! Super CRP," and once he came up to me, he told me, "Look at you. This was you 10 months ago and now look what you've accomplished and built for yourself. You are more than ready to inherit my power." When I told I felt so lucky for this chance, he responded with a simple statement: "There is a difference between being lucky and deserving. One is an accident, the other is because you have earned it." As I was crying at this, he proceeded to pluck one of his hairs and then said, "Now eat this." And thus, all my expectations and frankly everything I was expecting for gaining the greatest power ground to a halt. While this was happening, and All Might explained that you needed to have the previous holder's DNA to mix with a new holder by eating it to transfer, a pair were watching over both of us from the tree line. Once I had eaten the hair and All Might said it would take a few hours to digest and gain it, that was when they called out, "No POV, so, you're just gonna send him in kinda blind to try and figure out how this works and haven't considered how he can fight at all, have you?" Izuku and All Might hear from the tree line and see the young dark-haired man that talked to them about the problems of quirks and the society they built over 10 months ago. Not much had changed with the young man, his hair a bit longer, his clothes seemed somewhat tattered, and he stood taller than before. But the dark shirt, sunglasses, and boots were the same as were the blue jeans he was wearing. As All Might is freaking out about the prospect of someone else knowing more about One for All, the young man calms him down saying, "Relax dude, I've got my own set of secrets." And as dumb as the general population usually is, do you really think they'd even believe me if I said anything? With this statement given, All Might asks the big question that has been on his a few other heroes' minds: why haven't we been able to find you or your accomplice down? Seriously. Look at me. I'm not that overly descript to begin with. I may be a bit tall compared to most from Asian regions, but even then, I'm not overly flashy with how I do things like you. Hardly anyone would look twice at a tall guy with dark hair. Izuku pipes up next saying that, he has a point. Even when he unleashed that big punch like you would do, he didn't call out a name of an attack or anything like that. And it wasn't like too many people got good footage of that whole incident. He could just hide easily in the crowd. All Might shakes his head in resignation and leads with, "Fine, but what are you doing here? And with what you said, it isn't like I really have enough time to teach him enough to use my power properly. The exam is this afternoon and he still has to wait to digest and gain the power." Even with his sunglasses on, they can just feel the withering, really look coming from the teen. He lets out a sigh and says, "What if we could give you a little more time to get a feel for what you can do?" "We," says All Might, but Izuku says, "Wait, do you mean that woman that appeared with you?" Right, he asks this. They all hear a spectral, "Well, I'm not really a woman right now." And appearing out of smoke is an attractive teenage girl with blue skin floating in the air. She appears in what looks akin to a belly dancing get-up, showing of a well-toned stomach, as her medium-length midnight hair seems to absorb the light. Her appearance makes Izuku blush like mad, and All Might turns away out of trying to not look like a creep. The young man just sighs and says, "You're wearing that belly dancer get-up to screw with them, aren't you?" The girl laughs and says, "I couldn't resist messing with them. They're both just so serious." Floating around and causing the parts of her costume to jingle and ring. While I don't disagree, and frankly their reactions are hilarious, let's tone it down so we don't seem totally crazy. He says with an eyebrow raised and playful smirk. "Oh, all right." The girl changes into a what appears to be a red tank top with a black long-sleeved button-up shirt over it. Her lower half though looks as if she is wearing HRM briefs, with sneakers strangely enough. It is once she is done changing All Might finally asks the big question, "Who are you two?" With that the young man has a look that basically says, "Oh yeah, we never got that far." "Well, ladies first, my name is Sahii." "I mean Saphantite," the young man snorts and retorts, "Really? And your name, young man?" All Might pointedly asks. To which he says, "My name is Jojo, son of a bitch. You can call me Jotaro," to which Saphantite gives him an even more withering look saying, "And you laughed at my alias." All Might wants to keep pushing them, but he knows they may not have the time and he wants to know what they are after. "So why is it you want to help Izuku, let alone me? You seem to have a serious dislike for quirks and our hero society. So, what is in this for you?" All Might questions, to which the pair look at each other and the young man leads off. The kid has what is in his heart to really be a hero. Not just a fool who is chasing fame or glory. Or like some of the dumb animals who want to play with their little tricks. He's not in it for himself but to help and save lives for the simple fact of saving lives. Jotaro says with a straight face, one radiating confidence and a straightforward mindset. While All Might has more questions, he does acknowledge the fact that they could both be here to help. "Then how do you intend to give young Midoriya the time he needs to grow into this? It's not like you can just stop time for just us." To this he sees Saphantite smile while Jotaro raises an eyebrow and grins saying, "Who says we can't?" While All Might is processing this, Izuku starts of a crazy mumble spree trying to figure out all he has seen and heard both unusual figures say. To which Jotaro gets in from of his eyes and claps to snap him out of it. Once that is done, he says to Saphantite, "So think you can do it?" She looks to him saying, "Well, the question is for how long and what are you expecting me to pull energy from to use this spell? I can't just plop a temporal field down willy-nilly and expect everything to work out." Jotaro responds matter of fact, "You can pull from my energy to make the field. And let's give him another 6 to 8 months to train. That way there isn't too much strain on me, and we can get in the training he definitely needs." Saphantite looks at him with worry saying, "Are you sure? It'll take even longer for you to recover if we do that." "I'm sure. I trust you and I know I'll be fine," he says with a small smile. Once this little moment has passed between the two, All Might calls out, "Whoa, wait a minute. Did she just say spell and taking energy from you? How is any of that possible?" Jotaro just smiles looking at All Might and says, "Remember what I told you before. There are greater things than are dreamt of in your philosophy and in your sciences. There is more out there than you know." With that said, Saphentite places her hand on Jotaro's shoulder, waves her hand creating a circle in the air and snaps her fingers making a white flash surround all of them. Once All Might and Izuku's eyes had adjusted after the flash of light the blue-skinned girl unleashed, they looked around and saw a hazy appearance to everything. The thing that shocked them more at one point was that they could see birds just outside the boundary, in mid-flight and not moving. It took them about 5 minutes to shake the surprise of seeing what they had believed impossible, even by Quirk standards. When that was done, Izuku started shouting, "How is this possible? You both said you don't have a quirk. And as far as any science and study of quirks goes, no one has any kind of ability like this. Is it some sort of tech-based capability?" "No," she called it magic. "But magic doesn't exist, or does it?" Mumble mumble. "So, are you gonna be lost in your own little world within this time-accelerated world for a while or what?" Jotaro asked with a bemused look on his face. This snapped Izuku out of it and he was able to focus in on the two unusual people who appeared to be helping him out. All Might, while still reeling from this impossibility, adjusted more quickly and brought up a problem to their current situation. "Even if this space is accelerated, we will still need necessities. Food, water, a place to sleep or rest, a place to use the bathroom or wash up. How exactly are you planning to deal with that?" Jotaro and Saphentite shared a wry smile before both pointed out, "There is a literal genie in front of you. Depends on who is talking, can create food out of thin air. Pointless stuff like logic, reason, rational thought and perspective, even physics are worthless to both of us." To illustrate said point, Saphentite waved her hand and created a plate full of sandwiches. "Normally I'd leave the cooking to Jotaro since he likes cooking and is pretty good at it, but we're pressed for time, and we need to get started. Though she is limited in certain ways too. She can't warp or change reality too far. Nor can she just make whatever you wish for happen anymore. But small stuff like making food or a structure isn't hard at all and doesn't have too many long-lasting issues. Right, so Izuku will keep this simple for now. You and I are gonna fight for a while," Jotaro says. While Izuku on the other hand has a completely freaked out look shouting, "Wait. What?" Jotaro smirks before saying, "You need to first figure out how you want to fight or what feels right for your body first. Having a power is great and all, but it doesn't equate to knowing your own body and the way you can fight best." As Jotaro is saying this, takes off the outer shirt he is wearing. Even though he is wearing a t-shirt under, the shirt is tight across his chest and shows off the impressive muscles he has. Izuku feels too intimidated to move, so. "If you won't make the first move, I will," and with that Jotaro rushes at Izuku, going for a punch to the face while smiling. Izuku dodges in time but just barely. He had not only been intimidated by Jotaro's size but the bit of killing intent that seemed to be coming from him. "Good. Even though you were scared and probably a bit overwhelmed, you still found the strength and courage to move. That's one of the best starts we could have in this case," Jotaro says with a more relaxed smile rather than the look of bloodlust before. "Now, I'm not gonna attack you again. Instead, you are going to come at me with whatever you've got or can imagine up for an attack. And I won't hit back right away. I'll just dodge or block instead." Izuku is confused by this statement and asks, "Wait, why are you not going to be fighting back? You need to get a better feel for how you want to fight, like I said. To do that you have to fight on your own merit and with whatever skill you think you have. And no, this has nothing to do with power or anything like that. People can fight without something like that and have for millennia. So, for now try and throw punches or kicks that feel right." And with that Jotaro takes a stance with his right foot behind his left and his left side to Izuku, who in turn clenches his fists and gets a rough boxer-like stance. While this is going on, Saphentite has created chairs and a few other amenity-like places for when Izuku and to an extent All Might get tired. She and All Might are currently sitting on chairs she created and watching while the other two spar. After a few minutes, she asks All Might a question that has been bothering her. "Surely with the meta abilities that everyone is so proud of, they should have been able to heal you. So, why are you stuck in this emaciated state? He sighs and looks to her with a bit of resignation. Even with the best healing quirks and the surgeries I've undergone, they couldn't heal me back to full. It's pretty hard to replace a missing stomach and badly destroyed lungs. He looks back to the boys sparing and contemplating what is to come. Not just due to my injury but also the fact that I'm getting older. Sooner or later, I will have to retire. And when that day comes, I'll have to entrust the future to young hopefuls like young Midoriya and even young Jotaro. You two only gave what I'm guessing are your given names, not your family names. Oh yeah, that is more of a thing in Eastern countries. We'll talk about that later, but really, the silly superpowers you are all so proud of haven't helped advance medical science enough to where you can clone or recreate organs that have been lost. Let alone just going with a transplant surgery can't help you. Saphantite asks while pinching the bridge of her nose in annoyance. Okay, you know what, once those two get done with their sparing for a while we'll fix you up. All Might while she is saying all of this has a shocked look on his face and, once she's done ranting, he says, whoa wait. What? How can both of you help? I get you're a genie, but you even said some of your power is limited. And I thought his power was just some sort of super strength. So how can he help heal someone? Saphantite just gives him a deadpan look. First of all, just because my power is limited doesn't mean I can't create the cells that would make up your stomach and lungs. And second, why would you assume a metahuman's capability is so simple and one note with their power? Or only has one base ability? All Might is a bit taken aback but explains, well that's how quirks are, for the most part anyway. A person with a quirk only has an ability that in many cases is very simplistic and straight to the point and have minor resistances. Let alone the fact that there are often drawbacks to the powers. Like for a pyrokinetic or cryokinetic they could either get frostbite or burn up their own bodies if they overuse their power. Others may have issues like overloading their brain if they have an electric quirk or it can only be used from a certain part of the body or with specific equipment. Even mutant type come with a few issues and drawbacks to how they are used. It's just how quirks are. Midoriya in his case must worry about the recoil from throwing a punch because the power is too much for most anyone to handle. Even just the average person will have a simple ability like extending fingers, glowing, making your hands like stone etc. Saphantite's face can't get any more deadpan as she facepalms and shakes her head. Okay. Putting aside the greater stupidity of everyone having completely worthless abilities they shouldn't even want. Or rather need because they all seem like garbage. I'm going to guess you, even though you didn't have a power yourself, didn't have a problem with the recoil, did you? No. How did you know? She floats up and grabs a few drinks from the fridge she created and hands one to All Might. The way you went about describing your power that you passed to him. My guess, your ancestry granted you with stronger bones, muscles and ligaments compared to most Japanese. Given the hair color and your build both buffed up and like this you more than likely have some Euro ancestry. Probably a family member who is from the States or something. Wait, how did you? She cuts him off with, not important right now. Right now, we need to focus on fixing you up and getting Green Bean there ready. Speaking of which. The boys had stopped sparing, with Izuku breathing heavily while Jotaro looks like he hasn't even broken a sweat. Okay, looks like you have something of an idea on how to fight now, let alone how your own body wants to move in a fight. We'll take a break and rehydrate you. When the two reach the rest area and have gotten some water, Saphantite mentions her plan and idea to fix up All Might a bit. Probably wouldn't hurt to do. And I'm guessing you want to use my gamma energy to STMLT the cells you'll recreate, right? Whoa, back up a bit. Did you just say gamma energy? As in gamma radiation? Are you crazy? That would kill me. Both All Might and Izuku are freaking out at that prospect. Especially since they are talking about Jotaro using gamma energy and he just spent a few hours sparing with a guy powered by radiation. Okay, calm down. It's not exactly like that. It is true I can use gamma radiation and it can kill. But depending on the frequency of the radiation it can also STMLT cell regrowth. Jotaro holds his hands up in defense and explains. While they were talking, Saphantite has set up a table for them to operate on. Good. We're all set up to work, we just need you to take off your shirt, All Might, and we can get started. Don't worry, we've done this before. Even to ourselves. Well, me more so. She doesn't have to worry since she's a genie. With a sigh of resignation, All Might lies does just that. But he stays ready just in case they do try to do something that would kill him. He isn't sure he can take both of them down, but he has already passed one for all to the next. He can still bet on the next holder to carry on his hopes and will, as well as become the next symbol of peace. With a wave of her hands, Saphantite starts a spell around the wound and the other areas that All Might mentioned were damaged from his fight. While Jotaro can't see the parts where she has reformed the old cells, he can sense the start of the change. As well as something else that even All Might isn't aware of. So, he channels his healing gamma wave, in small amounts, to those areas. The resulting gamma energy, and a few other energies moving through him, restores not just All Might's organs but brings some life back into his eyes. While he won't be the same as he was, no bringing him back to looking like his two heroes' self, he can breathe properly again and he can even feel his stomach. And how empty it is. When he stands up from the table his hair is still down, but rather than looking like a skeleton, he looks closer to his buffed-up hero self. Try to imagine a happy medium between the two forms. He can even tell he's regained some of the time that had been dwindling away. He could be in full hero form for at least 6 hours. And even without one for all, he is still stronger and in infinitely less pain than before. Well, glad that worked. How are you feeling? Saphantite asks, and then suddenly All Might grabs her and Jotaro into a big hug, thanking them profusely. I believed I had lost everything. I was stuck at feeling like I was becoming useless. But you've both pulled me up and helped me recover. Thank you. Thank you so much. Jotaro just smiles and looks warmly at Saphantite. She has both a good and bad habit of pulling people back from the brink. My sarcasm has rubbed off on her over time, but she's still quite the optimist. Izuku can't believe what he has seen yet again. These two strange people have managed to buy him time to learn more and have restored the symbol of peace more than any doctor he has seen in their world. But before he can start in on questions, Jotaro tells him, it seems like that power he passed to you has settled in. Now we can get started on some real training and understanding. He cracks his knuckles and heads back to the spar area. Let's get back to it. Back in real time, the whited out area on Dagoba Beach disappears after about an hour. And once it has, the four emerge. All Might in his medium might form, Izuku looking a bit bigger and stronger than when he went in, with a bit more confidence and heart than before, and both Saphantite and Jotaro looking pleased with themselves on having helped both. Before they left the zone, the unusual two told All Might and Izuku that they will also be taking the UA entrance exam. With Jotaro saying, there's still a lot I can help you with. And I want to see how you can grow. Besides, it'll get those jokes who call themselves heroes off our backs if we go through some of the schooling. Even though technically I don't have a quirk, they still want to arrest me based on their pitiful narrow-minded arrogance. Once he had said that though, Saphantite smacks him over the head for that rather rude statement. Ack. Hey. I know about your opinions on a lot of this warped world of quirks, but there are way too many times that you're pretty spiteful. So back off. He sighs but relents with, alright. I'll lay off a bit. But if there is some but who sees me off too much, it's on. Saphantite pinches the bridge of her nose saying, yes, and when that happens, I'll remind you again. After what felt like 6 months of training together, Izuku and All Might had gotten used to and were constantly amused by the other pair's interactions. But they had no more extra time to waste. The UA entrance exam awaited them. Chapter 3. Yeah, so, these will be fast uploads, as you might have noticed. Like I said in the previous, I had this planned for a long time, since I've had my own comic characters and universe made for a long time but never had the confidence to pitch it. And now that I've started, I don't plan on stopping. At least not anytime soon. Well, here's hoping that you all enjoy. Let's start the show. Izuku POV. As I walked up the slope towards UA, I couldn't help but feel a swell of happiness and pride that I had the chance to do this. It was made even more possible thanks to my two newest friends, Jotaro and Saphantite. I know their actual names now, but even though I know their true names, I'll probably stick to calling them by that. Habits die hard after all. Move your butt over, Deku. Speaking of which, Ka no Katsuki is still the same. Yeah, those extra months helped with a few other things. Including realizing that I can't keep using him as a yardstick, especially with what Jotaro showed and told me about heroism. He helped me to realize that the idea of winning isn't as straightforward as Katsuki likes to think it is. Plenty of room to go around, you know. After saying that, he has this shocked and of course angry look on his face. Why, you worthless? He readies to strike me, but I'm ready for it. Or I would be. If Jotaro hadn't grabbed the hand he was going to strike with and says, "Hey dumbass, how about you save it for later? Not like you deserve to be here anyway." He turns around to lash out at whoever grabbed him, but is a bit intimidated by this 6-foot-tall brickhouse who stopped him. As such, he does the only thing his short-fused self can think of, he lashes out at Jotaro. Dumbass moment if I ever saw it. Who the hell do you think you are? He lets off an explosion point blank at Jotaro, and it does nothing. He doesn't even flinch, and there's not even a single mark on his clothes. To which he just responds, "Are you finished with your temper tantrum, little baby?" And of course, Katsuki is dumbstruck that his almighty quirk was completely useless. With that done, Jotaro lightly, especially for him, tosses Katsuki away. "Remember what I said, fool, save it for later. Otherwise, you'll find you have different issues to deal with." With that, Katsuki huffs and basically stomps away like a kid told to go to his room. Whoa, that was kinda intense. We both look behind and see a cute girl with brown hair, a permanent blush to her cheeks, and brown eyes who had apparently seen the whole thing. I was a bit dumbstruck that a girl would talk to me. I may have gotten used to Saphantite, but she is a bit more different given what we've been through. Jotaro takes a moment and elbows me back to earth. Yeah, we have a history. He's strong, no doubt, and his drive to be a hero isn't bad. His big problem though comes from letting way too much praise spoil him. Well, he'll probably get a wake-up call about it sooner or later. Jotaro says first, then looking to the girl, "So what's your name?" The girl is a bit surprised by the bluntness of the question and answers, "Uraraka Achiko." "What about you two?" I'm stumbling a bit, but I manage to get out, "Emma Midoriya Izuku." And of course, Jotaro has no problem saying, "Jotaro Svoboda." Just FYI, I used my given name first. And good luck trying to pronounce my family name. It's Czech, not German or English. Uraraka seems a bit off-put at his statement, not to mention his way of referring to himself. Or maybe she's just a bit unsure how to go about it given not only what he just said but also how to pronounce his last name with a Japanese accent. Jotaro may speak fairly fluently, but he still peppers a lot of other languages in when he talks. Okay, Jotaro-kun and Deku-kun. I'm a bit surprised by what she said, so I correct her gently, "Izuku, please, or just Midoriya. That guy only calls me that as an insult. Because my name can also be read as useless." "Oh. I'm sorry, I thought it was like Dikairu or I can do instead." She backpedals and gives a decent reasoning, so I take a bit to calm her down, saying, "It's okay. Not too many would find a positive spin for an insult, so thank you." We both blush a bit and I'm honestly hoping the conversation can go a bit longer, but Jotaro brings us back to reality. "If you two want to get to know each other more, maybe save it for after the exam. Come on." And with that we both realize he has walked off and follow his lead. The exam itself isn't too hard. Saphantite made sure I could keep up my other studies. She seemed to appreciate my more analytical approach to things. Jotaro can figure out what a villain's plan is and can come up with a few ways to stop it, but he doesn't often think of a whole strategy. Though I think most of that is due to the generally overwhelming physical advantage he has. Not too unlike All Might. But once that was over, we all went to the auditorium for the overview of the mock battle exam for the hero course. Part of me wanted to geek out about Present Mike giving the explanation, but I kept it in. Once the base explanation was done, a tall student with glasses stood up with the question of what the fourth villain type was. But he couldn't just ask and started in on a spiel about duty and a few other things. Before saying to Jotaro, "And you? Why do you have your feet on desk? Are you disrespecting with exam and what it stands for?" While I was afraid Jotaro would go off on the guy, he kept his cool or retorted back, "And do you realize you're an obnoxious blowhard?" In case you hadn't noticed, Mike was getting ready to talk more once everyone had absorbed the base rules for the exam. "And second, did you even notice how big of a scene you've made? Between that ridiculous rant earlier and calling me out, you've literally dragged all the attention to you. You doing this just to be famous or say you're gonna be the #1 hero? 'Cause if so, I think you've got the wrong idea about a lot of things." Before the bespectacled student could respond, Mike spoke up, "All right, that's enough, listeners. Now you both bring up a point, because yes, I was just waiting before continuing my explanation. However, neither of you needed to call each other out. The fourth type of villain is just an obstacle, like a thwomp in those old Nintendo games. It is worth 0 points, so it's often better to just avoid it." With that explanation done, we each looked to our numbers for the battlefields. Now all you listeners go to the buses to take you to your battlefields. Break a leg out there. I was heading to Site 2 while Katsuki was headed to Site 1. Before we headed out, I could see Jotaro smiling a bit, and I had a very bad feeling that a lot of people were gonna be upset. But I couldn't worry about that now. I had my own exam to get ready for. At Battleground Beta I saw Uraraka there as well, but I also saw the glasses-wearing guy too. Given the engines in his calves, I guessed he was probably a speed type of hero. As I passed Uraraka, I told her good luck, and just as the exam was about to start, I calmed my mind and thought back to those moments in the time bubble. Flashback: Izuku laid crumpled on the ground with 2 broken legs and a broken arm, barely conscious. "Well, that isn't entirely surprising," All Might said. Though his explanation at how to use it had been helpful to a point and Izuku had bulked up enough to not blow up his body, it still wasn't overly helpful for the long term. And that is precisely why I wanted to give him a bit more time. Also, would this have happened to anybody who you transferred this power to? Well, probably not you given your capabilities, but yeah. All of the previous holders of 1 for All had to dial in the amount of force they used or they'd break their bodies. Even through the sunglasses you all but see the annoyed look on Jotaro's face. All the more reason to question why all those idiots think quirks are a good thing. Okay, I'll help with healing as well, and then we'll work on figuring out how to dial in the power. I'll admit I'm used to limiting myself on how much force I unleash, but not for that reason. As Izuku was being healed by Jotaro and Saphentite, All Might saw his eyebrows raise at point during the treatment. At a meal the three had later, a few, by their experience, days, he questioned what surprised him. "Oh, that. Yeah, he's more like you than you'd think, All Might. I'll explain more later, but both of you have much more potential than you believe. For now, we need to fully help you figure out how to use this quirk power of yours." He set down his spoon and had me come to a different spot than where we usually spar. "During the few times you've been sparring with me, Sap, he and All Might, it seemed like you had managed to find the limit you can unleash at once without hurting yourself. Though it seems like you are only using it in parts of your body." "Wait, how can you tell?" Izuku asked. "I can sense energy, and it feels like you are just opening the floodgates in parts of your body. You're trying to release all the flood at once from a single gate, which is where the recoil comes in, or breaking the dam, and want to continue the analogy. Luckily, you've figured out your limit, but you still keep using just parts of the dam." "Then what do I?" "Wait, parts of the dam. Floodgates." Izuku started into a shorter mumble spree that ended with, "That's it." Saphentite looked at him confused and asked, "What's it?" You're right. I'm only using parts of the dam to hold back a river. Instead of opening just one floodgate, I need to open them all with the same small amount. With the explanation done, Izuku did just that, spreading the power he felt before across his body. There was a crackling of energy all around him. Well now, I knew you figured it out, but I wasn't expecting this. Can you hold it? I don't know how long. Jotaro smiled and said, we'll work on extending later, for now just get used to the feeling. Over time Izuku figured out how to hold the state longer and took to calling it full cowling. All Might gave him a thumbs up at the name, but the other two rolled their eyes. Jotaro later had Izuku focus on meditating while holding the power. He later revealed he meditated to better limit and feel out his power and how much he could use. This would help Izuku in various ways later. Flashback end, Izuku started gently breathing and started the power of OFA running throughout him. A few other examinees thought he looked stupid standing like that. But others noticed a calm focus that had appeared on his face. The second the doors opened, he rushed forward, engaging a few one-point bots. While the others were still processing things, Present Mike shouted over the intercom, "There's no countdowns in real life. Get moving. The green kid is already racking up the points." As Izuku was running through the battlefield looking for targets, he noticed a few of the other examinees' quirks. The first that caught his eye was a boy who fired a laser from his stomach. And just as he had figured, the glasses boy was sprinting around at high speed with his engines. Uraraka surprised him somewhat, as she seemed to be lifting the robots and making them crash down. All the while Izuku was racking up point after point. Okay, that's around 60 or so. I'll get a few more then. Suddenly he felt a rumbling throughout the battlefield and saw a huge robot rushing through. Are you kidding me? That is supposed to just be an obstacle. I better get clear before dash. Ow. Izuku turned and heard a girl cry out. It was Uraraka. Her leg was pinned beneath some rubble and she was right in the path of the 0-pointer. That's when Izuku's legs just started moving on there. On again. He rushed past the glasses guy with a determined look. When he got to Uraraka he got the rubble off, but there wasn't time to run away. So, he did the next best thing he thought of. He pushed most of his power throughout his whole body and punched the 0-pointer so hard it fell over backwards. Even though he had used most of his power, the recoil wasn't as bad as it had been the first time he used it. In fact, he felt some of the damage healing a bit, but he wasn't sure how. Didn't change the fact he was falling faster than he could heal. He was about to throw a punch that could soften his impact when... Slap! Uraraka slapped him across the face and removed his gravity. As he got closer to the ground, she released the weightlessness she had been maintaining. And promptly threw up. Once that was done, the youthful heroine recovery girl showed up and healed Uraraka's ankle and was about to help Izuku when she noticed who he was and that he had started to heal a bit. Interesting, dearie. You're healing yourself without having to think about it. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. Izuku stated while he laid on the ground. He couldn't stand, but he was at least conscious. Well, I'll help you finish what your quirk had already started. She proceeded to kiss Izuku's cheek, and his limbs healed. But he wasn't exhausted. Tired or winded might be better to describe it. Which surprised recovery girl. She was not, however, surprised by what he said next. Is Uraraka okay? Recovery girl smiled and said, she'll be fine. Now how about a gummy for you? It would be about a week or so before the results of the exam came back, but Izuku felt proud of his achievements. Both in facing the villains and in saving those who needed help. Even if it wouldn't net him any points. That's what a hero is supposed to do. Right, All Might. John. Sahira, he thought aloud while making his way back to the entrance of the battleground. Chapter 4. So this chapter will be following my OCs. Mostly Jotaro. I'll also drop a few other parts to point out about some other things from my own universe. I'm kinda using this medium to feel out more of what people think about my characters and stories. Might toss in some parts from some MHA characters I skipped over last part. Anyway. On with the show. Jotaro POV, after sniping back at that JRK who made a big deal about not everything being explained up front, I checked my number, and it had Site 1 on it. And when I heard that JRK Bakugo was also at Site 1, hell well this is gonna be fun. For one of us anyway. After we each got up to leave Sap, he or rather Sahira caught me before heading to her bus. I saw that look. What look? I say, trying to keep a straight face and turning away from her. Don't joke around, John, I'm serious. What were you smiling about? And please just be honest. Even without seeing, I know she is looking at me with a mixture of both concern and a bit of disappointment. Not that the latter isn't unwarranted. Okay. I'm at Battlefield 1. And so is Bakugo. She sighs and has hem-haws around a bit before saying. Don't try to sabotage him, okay? We both know he kinda deserves to lose everything here. But there is no reason to take away or cripple his powers or anything like that. Just focus on your own score. Okay. I'll hold back a little bit, but no permanent promises. And if I focus on my score, he probably won't be able to do anything about it or even keep up. He doesn't seem the type to stick his neck out for someone else. I can tell she's giving me a questioning look, so I explain, I'm betting there's more to this whole exam. And it's not just about taking down villains. Mix explanation, the fact that he called it an obstacle more than an enemy specifically. The whole school motto of plus ultra and pushing beyond. More than that, if these guys and their tests are just about fighting villains, then that's no better than just training up a bunch of thugs. Which frankly is about what Bakugo seems to think everything of being a hero is about. She puts her hand under her chin and mulls it over before saying, that's probably the fault of the media, as usual. They're almost always garbage and only show what sells. I snort at the smart mouth she learned from me. Good luck out there, Sahira. I know you'll be a top fighter, but I hope you do it your way. And shine the calming light that you always do. I smile as I head for my bus. Even without looking, I can tell she has a content and happy smile on her face. Once we load up on the bus to go to the battleground, I can already feel everyone's eyes on me. Most are just looking at me as the guy who talked back to the glasses guy in the auditorium. But I know the most intense glare is coming from a certain angry Pomeranian. To which I just shake my head, and chuckle to myself. When we arrived at the exam site, everyone is getting ready with either sets of equipment to use their quirks, still and dumb name, or have changed into workout or athletic gear. Hey. While that is going on, I'm heading toward where the entrance is to get ready. Itchy why but. You. Big guy with the sunglasses. Look at me. Yes, I am well aware that he is trying to get my attention so he can brag up or try to intimidate me. But I'm not giving the little shithead the satisfaction. I said, URG. And that's when he does the stupid thing, of course, because he's only book and somewhat fight smart, and he grabs my shoulder. To which I respond on instinct, by backhand punching him in the face so hard it sends him flying and bloodies his nose. While everyone around me is intimidated by that, I just look around and say, whatever. And with that I've pretty much shut him down on trying to assert his demps or whatever bullshit he wants to pull. He's not dumb enough to try and fight for the simple fact that the practical starts soon. Once I hear the doors to the city open, I sprint off. No one else is ready since most were still dumbstruck by my smacking the little SHT like that. As I'm going through the city, I break almost every robot with a punch. I may not have my full strength, but it seems like they went with easily breakable bots. Probably a good thing. This is a school entrance exam after all. If they don't make it to where people can do some damage, with as weak as a lot of quirks are, then they won't get enough for the government to pay out for their training. Damn it, that feels all kinds of wrong to say. Ever since my powers awakened, I've never felt comfortable with the idea of working for the government by using my powers. I'll aid them in crisis, but I'm not working for them. Especially after what happened long ago. Anyway. I know I said I wouldn't sabotage him, but it's not really my fault that I happen to get most of the bots Bakugo is aiming for. At one point he was literally following me. He tried twice to pass me, but that led to him getting smacked by a bot. Clearly, he has a bad case of tunnel vision. After that though I happened, yes actually happened, to break bots before he could. I think I've gotten about 64 points or so. Not sure, lost count after a while. But I also try to help a few others, though mostly those who missed that rubble is about to come down on their heads. Like this one girl who seemed to be throwing acid or something on the bots. Tricky ability as is the flexibility she shows while attacking and dodging. Though it's not gonna help her when the top of a building is coming at her. An intriguing one was the short, and I mean really short, kid who seemed to be going more for stopping the villains with some sort of ball and hitting a button to turn some of them off. Not if that counts, but given the electrical energy I sense around, there's more than likely hundreds of cameras watching all of this going down. Then I feel something rumbling out of the ground. Given how big it feels, it is more than likely that 0-point bot that glasses guy wouldn't wait to hear about. I leap my way over towards it and I sense the strangest sight. There was a girl with very large hands a little way in front of it. She more than likely fell trying to get away from it, don't really blame her or most anybody else who did that. Not everybody has as dense a body as I do, and couldn't get up before it was almost on top of her. No, that isn't the strangest thing. No, the strange part is that the bot had stopped, or rather one tank tread had stopped or been gummed up. Tiny, despite seeming like a coward, had tried to stop or slow the thing with those things. It's not a permanent solution or fix, but it actually did slow it down. Not sure if he did it because of the girl there or if he did it just out of fear. Either way, he had the guts and heart to try. Though he is apparently dumbstruck that it worked. 'Cause he's not moving. The girl yells at him to move and he seems to snap out of it. She also still tries to run, but I'm guessing she rolled her ankle. So, she can't move too fast. I got there just as the huge fist of the bot was about to crush them both. Though the big-handed girl has got plenty of heart herself. Shorty had the problem of too short of legs, let alone the fact he stopped after realizing what he managed. And I guess out of respect that he tried to save her, she picked him up and threw him out of the way as far as she could. When she sees that she isn't going to be crushed, she looks up at me and asks, "Who? What? How? Where? Is this really the time to be playing the random questions game?" I shout as she snaps out of it. "Can you hold it for long? I can't move very fast right now." I grunt and just say, "Or I can just finish this now. Stay, or rather get back as far as you can. I don't know how badly this thing will fragment once I'm done." And with that I shove the bot back with as much strength that I can muster, while in this state, which makes it bounce back a bit. Then I finish it after ripping the big metal arm out and crushing it with its own arm. There is a bit of debris that falls towards her. She smacks the first few pieces away, but when the head starts falling towards her, she knows she can't stop it and braces for the hit. But when it doesn't come, she looks up and sees me holding the robot's head like Atlas holding the world. I think. "You, okay?" I asked with a smile directed her way. "Why yeah thanks, okay." Why is she stammering? "Hey. Are you too, okay?" Guess short stuff has some more of the right stuff in him than I thought. Oh man. That was crazy. I just started using my quirk as best I could, I wasn't even sure it would work. And then, whoa hello CC dash, okay bub hold it. I'm just gonna stop you right there before you finish that sentence. He looks up to me and asks, "What do you mean?" She's attractive and fit girl, what's wrong with saying that? I pinch the bridge of my nose, shake my head, not the first pervert who is trying to be a hero I've experienced but still, and tell him, "Isn't there you should say first." He thinks for a sec and then says, "Oh yeah, thanks for the save." Or maybe it was a reciprocal save. I started throwing more of my ball when I saw you fell. The girl sighs and says, while I'm not overly appreciative of the whole just focusing on the fact I'm attractive, I do appreciate that you still tried to help even when you had no clue it would work. This seems to make him feel better about his chances, but before he gets the chance to say anything I say, yeah, even if it was desperate, it wasn't a bad idea. But next time don't be so overly surprised that it worked that you forget to keep moving. Right. He says despondently. He perks up though and introduces himself. My name's Mineta Minoru. What's your name? Pretty sure that was mostly directed to the girl, but he was smart enough to play it off. Oh yeah, what is your name, big guy? I'm Kendo Itsuka. Okay, I heard a little something different there from her, but I'll worry about that later. You're gonna have to stick to calling me by my given name. Pretty sure neither of you can pronounce my family name. I'm Jotaro Dmitry Svoboda. My last name is Czech. Yeah, okay, definitely can't pronounce that with the Japanese tongue. Minoru says rather bluntly. Which is something I do appreciate. Tiptoeing around an issue doesn't help. Then I hear Itsuka SK in air as she tries to walk on her hurt ankle. The response group for the exams just got here, but they're a way off. I can carry you both back so we can get out of here sooner. Minoru perks up and says, really? Thanks man. Itsuka looks down before saying, yeah, thanks for the help. Not sure why Itsuka said that in a soft voice, but whatever. Alright, hop on my back Minoru. I'll pick up Itsuka. Wait. What? She says as I grab under her legs and back. Minoru on the other hand got himself under my sweatshirt. When I ask why he did that he says, I saw how you leapt around the place earlier. I'm not taking any chances on falling off. So, I'm getting as close as I can. Fair enough. Hang on. I leap into the air high above the buildings that make up the mock city. After 2 leaps, we land back at the entrance where this old woman comes in and appears to be kissing some of the injured. So, what's up with the old lady? Well, I never young man. Well, you can forget about me healing you up after that. I raise an eyebrow at that statement. I know she's lying, but she needs to set an example, and say, that's fine. I don't need it right now anyway. Itsuka here is the one who is hurt. Think she twisted her ankle. Can you put me down now? This is embarrassing, she says while Minoru climbs off my back. Wait, what was that? I ask because I wasn't paying attention, to which she semi-violently exclaims, put me down, and then enlarges her fist and punches me in the face. It doesn't hurt, but it is annoying, so I say, a bit nasally, okay. Just relax. I'll let you down. Once that is done, Recovery Girl kisses the Itsuka's ankle, which heals it right up. But it is still a weird visual. Hey, good luck you two with everything. I gotta head out. I'll probably see you later. Minoru gives me a thumbs up and says, heck yeah man. No way they won't accept you. Itsuka on the other hand just says, yeah and hey thanks for the save and the help. I just smile and say. Isn't that what we're all here to do? Or rather learn to do. Later. Saphantite POV, I know I shouldn't be worried about what John could do, but I'm a bit afraid of what he could have planned, especially since we know about Izuku's history with that Bakugo boy. Ah. Never mind. Whatever happens, will happen. I can't change that part or what is gonna happen next. So instead, I'm psyching myself up and stretching out for this. I'll keep it mostly simple, some basic blast spells, maybe go into the martial arts I've learned. I'm of course gonna fly around, but even then, I know more battles take place on the ground than anywhere else. Mid-air battles are always messy anyway. Then I decided to change into something a little more comfortable for the fight. With a snap of my fingers, I change into a tight tank top, with a sports BR underneath, and a comfortable pair of sweats. I keep my sneakers though. Love the comfort of them. Whoa, that is a cool quirk. But is it really helpful for a fight like this is gonna be? I look over and see a young boy with shaggy black hair and shark-like teeth who is giving me a questioning look. Of course, I can tell he's looking at a few other parts of me more than my face. Though relative to a lot of the other guys, and some of the girls too, he isn't too bad. More like he's trying to figure me out. I smile coyly and poke him in the chest, which makes him blush, and say, "Who says that's my only trick?" That's when I hear Present Mike shout, "Begin." To which I turn around and fly off to find my first targets. Apparently, no one else is quick or smart enough to go because Mike has to follow up shortly after to tell everyone else to get moving. As I fly around I spot a few two-point robots behind a building and blast them with a few spells. They break rather easy, but that probably should be expected. They are sturdy, but against those with a lot of different forces at their disposal, it's no surprise they can't hold up. While I'm flying around, I notice a boy who seems to be as tall as John is. He's doing some strange thing with his 6 arms. Okay, guess it's not the craziest thing I've seen. Then I spotted that boy who was asking how helpful my power was. I have to admit I'm a bit impressed. Not only at the damage he can take but also that he can dish out a fair amount when he gets close. He goes a bit too forward in a lot of his attacks though. And he apparently doesn't look behind him. As he is about to be attacked by 2 robots, I blast them. When he looks up and sees me, the look of shock on his face is almost priceless. Told you I had a few tricks. I land and there is a 1-point bot coming at us. So, I take this chance to show off again. I rush at it, dodging its strike with an almost dancer grace and smash my fist clean through the head. And now he and a few others have to pick their jaws up off the ground. I roll my eyes and take flight once again. After a while I've gained quite a few points, around 65 points, when I see a huge robot appear out and start attacking the mock city. Okay, honestly, I'm just a bit surprised at the amount of crazy to make this thing. Let alone unleashing it on a bunch of kids. But I guess if they couldn't face up to big threat like that, then they, and that is what he meant. He must have suspected that they would test whether someone would be willing to jump in to save someone else. I fly over and I see the 6-armed boy trying to help and protect. A floating set of clothes. Okay, this is just getting weirder and weirder. But he can't move fast enough to get away from it. I fly down as create a barrier to protect both of them as well as myself. But I have to admit, this thing's blows actually are pretty heavy. I can't hold this forever. Go. At that the 6-armed boy takes off, doing his best to protect, whoever that is. John would probably be able to tell without asking. The part that makes me annoyed is that if I was at my full capability, taking this thing down would be easy. As it is, both me and John are stuck at low levels, like with a teacher system in an MMO or something. DMN. When was the last time I played a good MMO and OCRP? Shouldn't have gotten distracted. That little bit of my mind wandering was enough to weaken my barrier and the bot breaks through. I know I'll survive the hit, at least I'm pretty sure. But then all of a sudden the shark-toothed boy comes out of nowhere, grabs me and throws me out of the way. And promptly gets smashed. Time's up. Present Mike announces and the 0-pointer lifts its arm up and I can see the boy down in the crater. Just when I'm about to check to see if he's okay, he jumps up shouting, "I'm alive," which does surprise me. "You are one crazy gutsy guy, you know that." I say to him with a smile. "Any injuries?" "Nah, I'm good. I can harden my body so I can take quite a lot of hits. However, I would really like to not go through that again," he says as he demonstrates his hardening ability. Well, that explains how and why he did that. But still I doubt he knew he'd be able to tank that huge hit. "Well, how about I give you a lift to the entrance? We'll grab the 2 I saved originally on the way." "Okay, but how will we all?" As he's talking, I create a magic carpet and pat next to me to get on. He does with some reservation, and once it takes off, he grips the edge for dear life. The 6-armed boy and the clothes aren't too far away and we fly down and offer them a ride. That's when I realize that the clothes or rather the person is a girl when she cheerily says, "Wow, really? And is that a real magic carpet or is it something to do with your quirk? She's a bit of a bubbly girl, isn't she? Though her invisibility is weird. Like what she can't make other stuff invisible. It's just her skin. Oh, that's a bit of a rabbit hole. Pretty sure I don't want to follow it. To get my mind off of it I ask, anybody need a little healing? Oh, and my name is Saphantite Anwar. The big guy speaks up first. Yeah, I hurt one of my arms catching her after she fell. It's not a huge deal though. Someone else could go first. Oh, my name is Shoji Mizo. The invisible girl speaks up next. I'm good thanks to you Shoji-kun, I'm not hurt at all. And my name's Hagakure Toru. The shark-toothed boy finally gives me his name by saying, well you know I'm already okay. But my name is Kirishima Ijiro. Good to meet you Saphantite. Oh, I forgot to say this earlier, but I introduced myself in the Western way. My family name is Anwar. My given name is Saphantite. Though personally I don't really care which you use. I say with a beaming smile while I create some bandages to patch up Shoji. The boys blush a little, probably thinking I'm cute or something, and Toru pops in with the question, where are you from? If you introduce yourself that way, you're from the West, right? My dad is from Pakistan. That's where the last name comes from, and he was more comfortable with the first or given, middle and last or family naming convention. They all owe at that, but I guess it is a bit of novelty for them since they've probably never met someone foreign. Once we land, they start to talk about how well they did. But I tell them I have to go and that I have to meet up with family once I'm done. Hey. I turn and see Ijiro looking a bit bashful and he says, I hope I'll see you in class. I give him another bright smile and say, you will. I have no doubt about that. Chapter 5, Izuku POV. It's been a week or so since the entrance exam. I wonder if Uraraka was able to get a fair number of points. Her quirk was impressive, and it seemed like she managed to take out a decent amount of enemies with it. On the other hand, I wonder what my final total actually ended up being. Izuku. It's here, my mom says before handing me the envelope. When I turned it on it flashed to life with the announcement, I am here as a projection. All Might announces when I started the holo projector inside. But why is he doing this? I know you're probably confused young Midoriya. But you see, I am going to be your new instructor in Heroics 101 at UA. Of course. Given what I know of OFA now, he would have been looking for a new person to accept the responsibility and power. And where better than the top hero school that he's an alumnus of. What's that? I have more of these to do later. Oh fine. Anyway. On to your results young Midoriya. You did quite well on the written exam and passed with flying colors. Now for the practical. Here it is. The bigger questions I have will be answered here. During the exam, you scored a total of 65 villain points. Wow. I knew I was in the ballpark with the number of robots defeated. But I didn't realize I had taken out quite that many. However, there are other matters when it comes to being a hero. A factor you know and showed quite well out there. After saying this, the projector cuts to images of me helping and saving others amid the chaos and when I charged in to save Uraraka-san. And then. I don't know how to describe it other than an parade of people praising me. Many of those in my exam group. They were talking about how I'd inspired them to try harder. Even a few who thought that I should get a few points for actually stopping the attack of the zero-pointer. All Might is shown again and notes that UA couldn't just ignore how a person could inspire such courage and heart. Thus we have the hidden part of the exam, rescue points. And with this, you have another 65 points added to your score. My jaw drops at that. I didn't just pass. I went above and beyond probably what most would have ever believed. CRP. Now my eyes are filled with tears. As I'm wiping them, I see All Might leaning towards the camera. His hand extended and his same inspiring smile. Come young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. And the tears flow even more. Jotaro POV, after a week or so, I got a letter from UA. Technically it wasn't my exact address, just one I figured most wouldn't look too closely at. The part that was weird was that there was a holo projector in the envelope. Okay, so All Might is giving these announcements of acceptance or failure. I get that he's a big name and face for the pro heroes and UA as well. But it's a little weird that he's taking the time to do this. In case you were wondering about why I am the one giving your score and whether you were accepted to UA or not, it is for a very good reason. I will be your newest hero course teacher. I'm even sure what to say that. But I guess it does make sense. Even if he didn't choose Izuku as his successor, he would have had a great CRP of possible heroes to choose from to become the next him. Right. I know. I still have a few more to do after this. Anyway, young Svoboda, what do you know he can pronounce my last name and not stumble over it. During the battle trial you racked up an impressive 65 villain points. However, that is not the only thing we grade for in this exam. Something of which you apparently realized This was the case of you stepping in harm's way to help two others you didn't even know. As such, we here at UA also have the hidden system of rescue points. Did he really need to say that with all caps? For not only saving those two from a terrifying situation, as well as helping a few others who got themselves into other kinds of trouble, we have awarded you another 65 points. Well, I'm never gonna complain about that score. However, due to a bit of negligence on your part we have also docked a few of those points. We did catch that you said to get clear and didn't know how it would break. You still went about destroying the 0-point robot and some of the debris almost hurt more than just the other examinee there. You know what? I am glad they did take that into consideration. I knew no one else was around for a way, but it's good they caught me on it. This is a docking of only 10 rescue points, however. Some of the ones who pointed said matter out, did acknowledge that you acted in about the only way it would work at the time. So, with all of that out of the way your total score comes out to 120 points. One of the highest ever recorded at this school. Welcome to your hero academia. Well, this should be interesting. Saphantite POV, around the same time, when the envelope from UA came to my pseudo-address, I was a bit curious on why they went with holodisks for something like this. When I turned it on, the projection showed a woman in a flesh-colored bodysuit. With what looked like BNDGGR around her abdomen and an unusual domino mask. Okay, really? Is she supposed to be a hero? Between that look in her eye and get-up she seems like she either belongs at a club or is a villainess who gets off from screwing with heroes. Hello there cutie. You made quite the splash during the practical exam. And I don't just mean the little change and tease you did before the exam. They were watching as everyone was getting ready. Ha! That might have some repercussions for some. You managed to rack up an impressive count of 65, tying with the top score for villain points. Wonder who that was that took the top. Yes, that was sarcasm. But that's not all we worry about here at UA. One of the biggest things to count for in what it means to be a hero is the spirit of self-sacrifice. You showed that when you protected two other examinees as they were running from the 0-pointer. You held as long as you could, though there was someone who noticed that you got distracted. We all figured that was probably when your shield broke. But still, you held out long enough for someone else to get away. I grimaced a bit at that, remembering what happened. With that, and your other actions in helping others, we have decided to award you 50 rescue points. A few of us had tried to make a case for you getting more, but they got outvoted. Well, that figures. I can't blame them for docking me for getting distracted. If it had happened sooner, those two would have been caught up in it. Though to be clear, I was one of the ones who voted to dock your score. I've seen what happens if you get distracted at critical moments like that. But you'll learn from it. Congratulations, and welcome to UA. Not what I was expecting on who voted against me, but I am not opposed. After I was done with the letter, I opened the door and John was there. I could tell from that look he made it in as well. After a small smile he looks away towards where we trained Izuku. We need to go to Dagoba. We should check in with All Might and Izuku. And how do you know Izuku made it, let alone that they are there? He just turns back and gives me the really. Look. Oh right. I guess we didn't train him for nothing. Once we get there, we all talk about how we did and congratulate each other. Especially, Izuku. He had tied with John for all of his points. And unlike both of us, he didn't get docked for other actions. After going over a few things and All Might revealing, at least to me, that he would be teaching at UA, we all went out for dinner to celebrate. Izuku had called his mom and she was happy to see the two of us. She wasn't sure how he had become so confident so quickly, so we just said we helped Izuku while he was doing the beach cleaning. After a fun evening of Japanese-style barbecue, you don't have to get snippy about it not being barbecue, John. Even if it's your hobby, we all went back to our homes. Things are gonna get interesting in a few months. Bakugo POV, I was said. Bad enough that DMN Deku had a spine now and isn't even intimidated by me anymore. But that big guy basically made me look like a DMN extra. I heard after things were done, he smashed apart the huge 0-point robot. What the hell was the point to that? Why waste time on something that won't raise your victory count? If anything, let some other extras get crushed by the thing so they stay out of the way anyway. That isn't important right now. I just got my letter from UA. I can't wait to hear how I took the #1 spot for the hero course applicants. I power up the holoprojector, and I see some scruffy-looking guy with a scarf. Maybe he's an administrator or something. Hello Katsuki Bakugo. I'm one of the teachers here at UA. Okay, that's surprising. Probably some no-rank extra hero. But you aren't here to hear about me. This is about your application to UA. You passed the written half of the exam with flying colors. Of course, I did. So how far ahead of everyone was I for the practical though you scored 12 points? What? How? Did they mix mine up with Deku's or something? In case you're wondering, we have a few of the images during the practical to show you where you went wrong. Or rather just the fact you had a bit of bad luck. As it starts, I'm seething right now. How could they reject me? I'm the best. I'm the next #1. And that's when I see it. Right as I was about to hit a lot of the robots I had been targeting, that big BSTRD shows up and breaks them first. I had followed him for a bit to try and beat him. But that didn't go well, so I focused on other places and targets. How was he still taking out my prey when I was trying to avoid him? In case you were wondering about the other guy, he was bouncing around all over the place. Don't know what his quirk is, but a lot of us thought it was like All Might moving through the area. So yeah, you only have the 12 villain points. This can't be. This isn't supposed to happen to someone as great as I am. There one other thing though. I heard that and I'm sure he'll tell me I'm still in the hero course cause of how great my quirk is. Unlike that useless Deku with no quirk. We have footage from just before the exam started. We saw the altercation between you two. Ha. So, they'll be getting rid of him and I get in instead. Perfect. It's clear during that time you were trying to pick a fight. The other one was ignoring you, and when you got physical, he just reacted. One of our staff knows him and the fact he knows martial arts. All you were doing was provoking him and he just reacted on instinct rather than with any intent. I'm just floored by this. And the fact it seems like they won't be letting me in. With this we docked you 5 points. Some had suggested 10, but we figured it was best not to push it more. So, your final total is 7 points. 7 points. 7. That means I didn't even break double digits. I'm not gonna be in the UA hero course. Even though you failed the hero entrance exam, you passed well enough to get into the general education course. You have potential, but you need to learn to stop making everything a competition and just standing on top with intimidation alone. So that's it. This is how my great story stops. This is bullshit. You still have a chance when the UA field day comes around. Until then, keep up your studies. And hopefully you'll get a chance at some point. Good luck. For the first time in years. I just feel like I need to cry. Damn it. Ijiro POV, Ashido called me and asked to meet up. I guess she got her UA letter too. I hope I made it. It's not like I've got the flashiest quirk out there. But maybe I'll still have a chance. When we see they are holo projectors with a video, we decide to turn them on separately. Don't need the audio running over each other. Ashido goes first and present Mike is the one talking to her. He mentions that her written test needs some work, but she still passed. When it came to the practical, however, she scored 40 villain points. Though she did need to get saved at one point. Whoever that guy is, he's as tall as Shoji, and he seems a bit more manly and built too. But Mike is happy to say that she passed the exam, and she is going to be in the hero course. Anyway, now it's my turn. Present Mike is the one giving my review of my exam as well. I'm a bit happier at the fact I scored higher than Ashido on the written exam. Not by much, but still. After that is when they get into my villain points during the practical. I had lost count of my points during the battle, but I ended up with 39 villain points. Ashido was chuckling and saying that she got more points on that battle end. That's when Mike pipes up again, saying that battling villains isn't the only thing we look for in an applicant. They have to be willing to do more. And that is what you showed here. With that, the image cuts to when I saved Saphentite from the 0-pointer. Ashido is having a mix of reactions, first telling me I'm crazy, then saying I was really brave, and then she gets this look that she has when she hears good gossip. And she starts grilling me about Saphentite. But that's not the part I'm focusing on. Instead, I'm focused on what Mike says next: you prove that you have what it takes. And so, we awarded you with 35 rescue points. Taking your total up to 74 points. Kirishima Ijiro, welcome to the UA Hero course. Once the projection is done, I give Ashido a look of, you were saying. At the fact she scored higher than I did. She punches me in the shoulder playfully and asks how we want to celebrate. I suggested we go out for some good meat to celebrate. I had gotten my spark of a hero back before the exam. But I'm glad that I had managed to prove myself that I still had a bit of the manly spirit Crimson Riot inspired in me. I'll make a bit of a change, before starting at UA. It's my new school. And my new start. Chapter 6. Well, I've made the decision. And you'll see who in the chapter after this one. For now, we have the assessment chapter and introduction chapter. There'll be a light bit of drama in this chapter, and it has nothing to do with Aizawa's test. You'll see. On with the show. No POV, do you have your handkerchief? Inko asks while her boy is running around the apartment. Yeah, I got it, Mom. Izuku says as he's putting on his shoes to go to his first day at UA. He was all changed into his uniform, his backpack on and ready for his next step to becoming the hero he dreamed of being. Inko herself was so proud and happy for him. Not only had he made a few new friends before the exam, but he had started on the path to his dream. A dream she had thought was impossible for a time due to the world they lived in. But he persevered and found a power all his own. Thinking back on and seeing him ready to go, she stopped him for a moment and said, "Hey, Izuku. You look really cool." "Thanks, Mom. I'm off. Time to get started on the path of a hero." As Izuku arrived at the gates of UA, he felt his heart swell at what could await him here. While he was staring at the building, Jotaro and Saphentite came up behind him. Jotaro looked a bit uncomfortable in his uniform. "Am I the only one who feels awkward in this get-up?" "Yes. Yes, you are," Saphentite says with a smirk. In contrast, Saphentite seems to be enjoying the uniform. though she may not want to float around too much with it on. Izuku on the other hand is smiling at his friends, and to an extent teacher, discomfort in the blazer and slacks. While they are all talking though, Izuku happens to spot Katsuki walking by. His head down and eyes shadowed as he walked on up to UA. Izuku knew some of what was going through his mind as he headed to the main building. It happened when their teacher had called him to the faculty office. Flashback, congratulations are in order Midoriya-san. You are the only one from our school to be accepted into the UA Hero program. When he said that, Izuku, with a surprised look, asked, what about Katsuki? Didn't he make it in too? The teacher upon hearing this had a slightly disappointed look on his face. His response was, unfortunately for Bakugo-san that did not happen. He apparently got one of the lowest scores for the practical. As well a bit of a disciplinary action against him for his actions before the exam. Izuku's eyes widened as his teacher explained that. He must have been in the same group as Jotaro. Even if he didn't sabotage Katsuki directly, he earned quite a few points himself. The two of us did tie for the top rank after all. When his teacher saw his wide-eyed expression, he quickly said, that isn't to say he won't be at UA. He was accepted into the general studies course. But for now, his plans for being a hero are put on hold. At lunch Izuku was going to talk to Katsuki when he got a call from Jotaro. I'm guessing your teacher told you about where Katsuki ended up at UA, didn't he? I know you want to help him, but now isn't the time. He's not ready or in a spot where your help will actually help him. As Jotaro was talking, Izuku was trying to catch up to Katsuki. Then when will be the time? I don't know what he might do. Yes, you do. You've known him your whole life. I know you know how he thinks for the most part. But this is coming from someone who has been where he is at. You must process where you are at or where you've fallen first before you can pull yourself up a bit. Once he's there, then he starts trying to find his way up. Izuku knew what Jotaro was talking about was his own history and experiences. When he was down, it took him time before he was willing to let Saphentite in to help him pick himself up. So, Izuku stops and realizes that he has a point. Katsuki has always fought or showed off his way through problems. He had never felt a major loss in his life, so this isn't like what happened when he told him to jump off the roof. Izuku had been down his whole life, but this is the first time Katsuki has really been knocked down. He knew Katsuki would find something to grab onto eventually. One part might just come from the UA Sports Festival. There was always a rumor that other departments could get the chance to move up if they performed well enough. And knowing Katsuki, he'll show them what he is capable of there. Flashback end, while Izuku is watching Katsuki walk by, he is very tempted to talk to him. You can't go talk to him. Not only is he not ready, but coming from you or me or anyone in the hero course, it would just feel like he's being insulted. And we both know how badly he reacts to the idea of being looked down on, Jotaro says with a stern look on his face, though I'm not sure if some of that is from how uncomfortable he is in the uniform. Doesn't change the fact that I want to help him. It's part of what a hero does. Right. Izuku says with a small smile. To which Jotaro smiles back and says, right. He just needs a little time. The first big losses or a huge defeat is often the hardest, but it's the one everyone needs. Hey, if you two want to keep discussing this, I'm leaving you behind. They both look and see Saphentite flying a little ahead of them. The two boys look at each other with a smile and follow her lead at hustling up to the main building of UA. They finally find the classroom for Class 1A, whoa, that's a huge door. Must be for people with gigantification quirks. Well, at least I don't have to worry about hitting my head. And that you can just feel the deadpan really. Looks coming from Izuku and Saphentite. When Izuku opens the door looking around at a few different groups of people talking and others just sitting at their desks. Suddenly, the bespectacled student from the exam came rushing up to the three of them. Excuse me. I am Ida Tenya from Somei Private Academy. I wanted to ask you something. You knew or understood something about the hidden part to the practical, did you not? Izuku is a bit flummoxed by how close he was while asking that but responded, no, I didn't know about that part. Though I think Jotaro did. At that, Ida looks up and sees the young man who told him off at the overview for the test. Wait. You knew about the hidden part of the test. But I thought. Well. That I was just a muscle head, right? I prefer to keep people on the back foot about what and how I can do things. I may end up telling all about some of what I can do later. But yeah. I knew there had to be something more to it. If this place was just about training us to fight villains or just fighting in general, then it would be kinda defeating the purpose of becoming heroes. Not everything is about a fight. When Jotaro said that, you could tell that Ida was surprised at the reasonable explanation he had given. I see. It's clear I need to open my mind to more outlets and opinions of people. Let alone realizing my own shortcomings. Thank you. He says while bowing. While he's doing that, two others approach the group. Hey Saphantite, good to see you. Glad we're all in the same class. Ashido, this is Saphantite. She was that awesome fighter at my exam site. A red-haired boy says and introduces a pink-haired and skinned girl. Yo. I'm Ashido Mina. Heard a bit about you. It's nice to meet you. Saphantite has a puzzled expression for a few seconds, then goes, wait, is that you Ijiro? I didn't recognize you with that hair. When they all hear her say his given name, the other students all perk up a bit. Oh. You two are at that step. Ashido teases Ijiro, who is blushing and trying to say otherwise when Jotaro says, it's easier for us given our backgrounds. I'm from the States. And I'm originally from Pakistan. Also, I was never big on formality. While a few are processing or just chuckling at the exchange, Uraraka shows up behind Izuku and says, hey Izuku-kun. Jotaro-kun. Guess we're all in the same class. Yeah, glad to be studying with you. Izuku gets out with a light blush. We might want to move it before the caterpillar that could probably use a nap, a shower, or a hot meal gets too annoyed. When a few of the others hear that, they quiet down. Wondering what the heck he was talking about. Impressive that you noticed I was here. Let alone the other parts you mentioned. But yes, if you are all here just to make friends, I suggest you go elsewhere. Everyone looks and sees a man in a yellow sleeping bag, looking like a caterpillar, on the floor skiing on a yogurt pouch. Most of you quieted down about 8 seconds after he said that. You all aren't rational enough. Is this guy in any place to talk? Most of the teens think. But Jotaro has a different thought. There's that pointless word. Rational. Doesn't mean SHT to the two of us. Once the man has gotten out of his sleeping bag, he stands and says to them, I'm Aizawa Shota, your homeroom teacher. Now I want everyone to get changed into their PE uniforms and meet at the PE ground. This surprises everyone, including Jotaro, who was sure he'd be planning a long speech about what they will be doing. But he just shrugs and follows everyone else. Once outside, he explains what they will be doing there. We're having a Quirk apprehension test. You'll be doing the same events that you would have during middle school. This time though, you can all use your quirks for the tests. Midoriya and Sabda. Vaboda, how the hell do you pronounce that? Jotaro just sighs and steps forward with Izuku. It's Svoboda. SSS Vo-boda. I get that it's a different language from even English, but come on. Aizawa coughs and follows up with, yes, well, never mind that. You two scored the highest in the practical. Tying at 120 points. After he says this, everyone is oohing and ahing in the background. I know she scored a little less, but why not have Saphantite come up too? That is true. She scored 115 points, but that isn't why I called you here. I want you two to demonstrate with the softball throw. How far was yours in middle school SVO? You know what? Jotaro. How far was it? The large teen tilted his head to the side slightly before saying, yeah, we don't have those in the States. At least I've never taken these tests. But I'll still go first. I just have to stand in the circle and throw it with everything I've got right. Aizawa is just massaging his temples in annoyance at him throwing him for a loop again. Yes. Just don't leave the circle. Jotaro just gave him an okay and stepped up. While he is doing this, Aizawa uses his quirk on him but is stunned when Jotaro still throws with such force that it breaks the sound barrier. After a few seconds, the reading comes back a few seconds later with 1,524 meters. Still gotta hold back a little bit. Aizawa hears Jotaro mutter. This gets under his skin, but he'll wait a minute. Alright. Midoriya, it's your turn. Oh, and make sure you show all of what you can do. Izuku starts to sweat a bit. I thought I recognized him. That's Eraserhead, the underground hero with the erasure quirk. He can shut down almost any quirk if he's looking at them. I bet he heard Jotaro mention he has to hold back. I can't do that though. I'll use all I've got. But I gotta be smart about it. Izuku takes his stance and charges up one for all. While he is doing that, Aizawa uses his quirk again to negate the power. However, it once again doesn't work. Izuku sends the ball flying, also breaking the sound barrier. The machine comes back with a score of 872 meters. This all of course terrifies Aizawa, as now his power has failed against two insanely powerful quirks. After seeing both examples, everyone else in the class starts talking about how fun this is gonna be. To which Aizawa says, fun huh? Well, let's make it less fun. The person at the bottom will be expelled. As will you, Svoboda, if you don't use your full capability. What do you mean? Jotaro asks, mostly to get a rise from him. And Aizawa fires back with, don't joke with me. I heard you say you still need to hold back. You can't give your all, then you aren't cut out to be here. The others all look shocked, at all three of the statements. Uraraka pipes up saying, that's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair. Insane villains who are out for BLD aren't fair. Heroes face danger like that every day. It isn't rational to think you can do this job by holding back. That's where the motto of Plus Ultra comes from. You push beyond. Jotaro just smirks at him and leads off with, you ever think there's a reason a person has to hold back? And really, you're one to talk about rationality. I noticed your two freak-outs when you couldn't cancel me or Izuku's powers. Aizawa grits when Jotaro calls him out for that. Meanwhile, Izuku is confused as to why his quirk wasn't cancelled out. He knows he got a quirk from All Might. Unless this is some of what Jotaro was talking about with being more like All Might. There might be more there than I thought. And what possible rational reason could you have for holding back? Well, I'm waiting. Jotaro just takes a deep breath, to which Saphantite tells everyone to back up and brace themselves and blows Aizawa back with an exhale. And then pulls him towards him with an inhale. By the time Aizawa has wrapped his scarf around a tree to brace himself, he's even more terrified. Then he starts feeling the ground rumbling. He figures it's just a small earthquake. Not uncommon in Japan. Until he looks up and sees that the rumbling is in time with Jotaro's steps. He is literally stepping so hard he's leaving small craters and causing tremors throughout the area. Okay. Okay, I get it. Stop. Aizawa shouts as the windstorm stops and he's on the ground winded. Jotaro is still a ways away, but he feels his presence looming. That is the reason I have to hold back. Also, just FYI, in case you are confused, I don't actually have a quirk. At this, everyone is stunned, Aizawa most of all. The top three of us at the exam don't. We aren't dehumanized by something as limiting and worthless as that. With that statement, everyone starts looking at Izuku and Saphantite too. The latter of whom is facepalming and thinking, I should have known he'd do this. Izuku and I will have to deal with the fallout later. Izuku on the other hand is freaking out that he would say that. Feeling assured that he would be bullied again. Or at the very least ignored due to his insane power. Before everyone just starts freaking out too much, I just want to say sorry about how I phrased that. He struck a few nerves, and I lost a bit of my temper. I will say he's not wrong in that a lot of things are unreasonable or unfair. You can't count on most of those beasts to hold back or care about anybody but themselves. Also, this isn't about competing. Don't worry about our scores, focus on your own. And put the best you can. With that stated, everyone started to take their tests. Ochako managed the highest score on the softball throw with infinity. But Saphantite kept surprising everyone with all sorts of transformations and created objects and the like. For her softball throw, rather than turn into a cannon, a girl a little bit shorter than her did that, she instead turned into a railgun and shot the metal softball over 3,000 meters away. Once all the tests were concluded, Aizawa tallied up the scores. First place was held by Saphantite Anwar, with both Jotaro and Izuku tied for second. Jotaro took the higher scores in strength-focused exercises, while Izuku had more stamina for others. At the bottom of the list was Mineta Minoru, who did the best he could with his lacking physique and a quirk with limited applications. As he was freaking out about being expelled, Aizawa piped up with a simple, for the most part that whole last getting expelled thing, it was a lie. It was a rational deception to get you to put out your best. As everyone face faults at that, Yaoyorozu Momo says, I thought that was obvious that he was lying. Should I have said something? While everyone else is screaming in their heads that she should have, Jotaro is following with a different thought. He was only half lying. He's telling the truth that he lied to make them put out their best. But he wasn't lying about wanting me gone. Is that why you got set at him? Saphantite asks in his mind, though she already knows the full answer and doesn't disagree with why he was mad. Once all of that is done, the rest of the school day finishes up as if nothing happened. Though, Aizawa had to answer why there was a sudden windstorm and earthquake happening while he was giving his test. As things were winding down, a few of the others came forward to ask a few pointed questions. Ochako went first with, Izuku-kun. Do you really not have a quirk? Izuku panicked a bit but calmed down and lead with, I don't really know. I didn't have any powers until the day before taking the exam. Jotaro had found me over a year ago and told me I had more potential than even I believed. He started me on a training regimen and eventually something woke up. There's a bit of the backlash you saw that with the 0-pointer, and today I did still hurt myself. But I seem to have some sort of minor healing ability too. Whoa, really? What about you, Jotaro-kun? Toru asked with a pep in her steps. With a few others looking on and questioning the same. Yeah man. How can you do that without a quirk? The blonde electricity user Kaminari Denki queried. At hearing that statement, Jotaro growls a bit before sighing and saying, do you honestly think quirks are the only thing that exists or matters? It's like literally the only thing most of you talk about. But to answer part of your question, no, I wasn't born with a quirk. An accident triggered my powers. Frankly, I think I've got a much better version compared to everyone else. I don't have a real recoil or limitation other than the ones I put on myself. Besides, what good is having powers if they just get in the way of your daily life? Or if they are the only thing that you use to define yourself? What's more, power should only be active or activated if it's necessary. Not just because you're born. While most everyone is looking down in resignation, Saphantite pops up with, did you bring everyone down so much? Toru, you asked me if the carpet I made was a magic one before, right? Well, that is exactly what it is. I'm not human so much as I'm a genie. Now before you all go asking for wishes, I can't grant them anymore. I'm a free, not bound genie. My powers are limited in a sense. Transforming isn't a problem as you've seen, but I can't create a lot of things. Other than that, I have a handful of spells to work with as well. Her cheery disposition and the way she goes about demonstrating gets everyone excited and a bit happier. Whoa, really? Genies are real. What is the craziest thing you can turn into? With that Class 1A ended out their first day. As all the students were leaving for the day, Ida, Ijiro, Ochiko, and Minoru joined the 3 quirkless students on their walk home. I'll include an extra explaining my reasoning for the middle drama in another extra chapter. But that is the Quirk Apprehension. I tossed a bit more of my dislike for quirks in there, but you'll understand a few other things with Izuku's immunity later. Please review and follow if you like what I'm doing. Chapter 7. Now we get to the battle trials. This is where you'll find who got removed to make space for Saphentite. Also, I know everybody usually goes with this happening the day after the tests, but I'm going with it happening a few days later. Not too many. Just like 2 or 3. So now that that is out of the way. On with the show. No POV. After the first insane day class at UA, the next few were downright boring. They were just the regular high school classes the average student takes every day. You could just hear the slightly annoyed statements of, "so ordinary," as they took present mixed English class. He was more than happy to call on Jotaro and Saphentite, given they both were fluent in English. Saphentite also seemed to match equal to Momo in terms of intelligence. Between that, and the abilities both had shown, a small rivalry was growing between the 2 girls. That aside, Jotaro and Izuku were also enjoying a bit of the mundane classes. It was a bit of an improvement compared to the emotional roller coaster from a few days ago. Today, however, would be a change to that pattern. As today was the day for their first hero class. Suddenly Jotaro jerked up from his leaning position and then had a disgruntled look on his face. Izuku was confused at his actions until he heard it. The booming laugh of All Might, followed with the shout of, "I am coming through the door like a hero." Well, that explains it. Izuku thought as All Might took the attention of the whole class. Whoa, it really is All Might. He really is a teacher this year. That's his Silver Age costume. So cool. Once everyone had calmed down a bit, All Might started in, "Indeed, students. I am your new Hero 101 teacher. Now then, one of the first parts of being a hero is..." He pushed a button, and a set of cases came down from the wall. Looking the part. Inside these cases are the hero uniforms you have all submitted and will help you get into the spirit. Meet me at Ground B and we will get started. Once he was gone, they each took their cases and headed for the locker room. The only exception was Saphentite, who had stated to the costume companies, "I just make my own. So why do I need you assholes to tell me what looks good or how I need to dress?" And she gets after Jotaro for having a smart mouth. Jotaro waited until most everyone had left to finish putting his on. He had some cargo black and gray breathes on with black combat boots. For his top though he did something he didn't want anyone else to see. He created an energy field around his chest and ionized the air, turning it into a skin-tight shirt with the Libra scales on his chest. After that he put on a gray trench coat and walked to meet everyone. Damn it. I can't form it as easily as I used to. Still, it's better than it was. Couldn't even make my logo over a year ago. As he's walking out, he hears everyone cheering. Up in the air, is Saphentite. Dressed in her usual HRM briefs, with a tight tank top that shows off her abs. For her feet when she is walking, she has on Tabi-style shoes. When Jotaro asks her about that she responds with a wink, "Felt more natural for where we are." Well, don't you all look cool? You're really shaping up for what the hero course is about. Once he was done and everyone had gathered, Ida spoke up asking, "Sir, this is the battleground where the practical exam was. Will we be fighting robots today?" "No, today we will be skipping 2 steps ahead, young Ida. Today will be indoor battle training." Most people do not realize that most criminal acts happen out of sight. Backroom meetings, drag deals, smuggling operations. For heroes now, we must take those matters into account as well. So, for today you will all be competing against one another as heroes or villains. Before the slew of questions would start, they were all interrupted by HEY. Everyone flinched at that, then looked to Jotaro. Momo was the first to ask, "Why did you shout Jotaro-kun?" "Oh, I was just stopping you all before you bombarded All Might with questions." If you'd all wait a few seconds, you'd have noticed that he wasn't done explaining. At this, a bunch who were about to ask questions flinched again and turned back to All Might. While he still had his trademark smile, he seemed to be chuckling and said, "Indeed. Thank you for the attempt, but you also distracted from the class as well." At this, Jotaro made an sound and just nodded his head. "Anyway, as young Jotaro said, I do have an outline for your battle trials." And to follow that up, he pulls out a script. While both Jotaro and Saphantite have their eyebrows raised at that, All Might explains the details. The scenario is this: villains have a nuclear weapon hidden somewhere in the building. The hero's job is to either find the weapon and secure it or capture both members of the villain team within the time limit of 15 minutes. On the other hand, the duty of the villain team is to prevent their weapon from being captured, which in this case all the heroes have to do is touch the weapon, or capture the heroes, or allow time to run out. Seems very American, is the thought on most of the class's mind after the description of the scenario. To the two from the West, they just thought, which action movie did he rip that scenario from? With All Might having finished his lesson scenario, continues with saying, "Now to divide up the teams, we will all be choosing lots. Each person will come up to the box and draw a letter denoting your team." Ida pipes up with a statement about if that is really the best way to decide, but Izuku corrects him with, "It's not like most heroes always have a choice of who they work with. For most pro heroes, they often have to team up on the spur of the moment." "Ah, yes, you make an exceptionally good point. Excuse my rudeness." All Might brushes this off and tells everyone to come up and pick their lots. With that done, the teams are as follows: Team A, Izuku Midoriya and Tsuyu Azuri. Team B, Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji. Team C, Saphantite Anwar and Minoru Mineta. Team D, Tenya Ida and Kirishima Ijiro. Team E, Yuga Aoyama and Mina Ashido. Team F, Rikido Sato and Momo Yaoyorozu. Team G, Denki Kaminari and Kyoka Jiro. Team H, Fumikage Tokoyami and Koji Koda. Team I, Mashiro Ojiro and Toru Hagakure. Team J, Jotaro Svoboda and Achiko Uraraka. With the teams chosen, all that was left to do was decide who would be fighting who, and who would be the heroes or the villains. The first group up was Team A versus Team D, with the former being the heroes and the latter being the villains. With that decided, the teams split up to prepare and plan for their inevitable encounters. For Team D, Ida was inspecting the dummy weapon the two of them were supposed to be guarding. Paper mache. That'll make it easy to move it around for when the heroes show up. Yeah, so your quirk is those engines in your legs, right? Mine is a hardening quirk. I can make my skin as dense and strong as stone. Ijiro said to get a feel for his partner. Indeed. I can increase my running speed greatly and magnify the power of my kicks due to these engines. Of course, our enemies are a bit of a conundrum. Ijiro tilts his head in confusion at the way Ida phrased that. After a second, he smacks his fist on top of his palm saying, "Oh, you mean you can't figure out Midoriya or Azuri are gonna fight, right?" Ida flinches a bit at the dumbing down of what he said but agrees. Midoriya seems to have some sort of super strength. But he also has that healing factor. Even if you could hurt him, he might be able to heal right up. Azuri on the other hand is a bit of a wild card. From what I saw, she seems to move around like a frog. Yeah, she seemed like a mutant type. The thing that I keep thinking of is what Midoriya said about Jotaro training him. Even through his helmet you can tell Ida has a funny look on his face. Ijiro explains that, "We both know how crazy strong they are, but Midoriya seems different to Jotaro. While Jotaro seems pretty patient, he's got a temper and looks pretty quick to strike. Midoriya on the other hand seems like the type to think things through and plan everything out. I noticed after class he had a notebook that seemed like it had some details on each of us." Ida contemplates what Ijiro just explained and mulls over a few scenarios before discussing them with Ijiro. While they have been discussing how to fight Team A, they in turn have been discussing how to find and capture the weapon. So Midoriya-chan, any thoughts on how to deal with those two? I saw the notebook you were writing in yesterday. It was about each of us and what we can do right. Yeah, it is. And I do have a few ideas, but maybe we should compare on what we can do first. Tsuyu puts her finger to her chin and thinks it over a bit. Good point. Well, as you may have noticed, my quirk is called Frog. I can do anything a frog can do. I can even stick to walls for a while. Izuku had his notebook in one of the pouches on his belt and began writing things down. He started going over a few things in his head before Tsuyu said, "So what exactly is your power if it isn't a quirk, Midoriya-chan?" This snaps him out of his mental rambling. So, he tells her, "I don't know everything, but my body seems to store the kinetic energy I either create myself or is exerted on my body. I haven't figured out how it all works yet, but it seems to fuel my healing factor, let alone the boosts to my strength. I think the recoil breaks that happen are due to my accidentally gaining more energy than I can handle at once. At least that is how we chose to describe it. And it isn't entirely wrong. OFA is like a battery that stores the power of each user." Jotaro only explained that it seemed like my body was being enhanced by kinetic energy. Still don't know how he can tell the difference between energy forms. So, you are kinda like a battery and your charge is kinetic energy. Izuku winces a bit at this description but agrees. But with that out of the way, he explains his plan. He has a rough idea where the weapon would be based on the size of the building. He tells Tsuyu to climb up the outside of the building to the 7th floor. The building is 12 stories tall, and even if this is not an entirely realistic scenario, the best option would be to get the weapon to a high floor, but not so high that flying heroes or ones who could land on the roof could get to it easily. While she climbs up the side, he will go through the interior and keep in contact. Both Ida and Ijiro wear heavier gear, so they should make noise moving through a level. I may not have super senses, but I've picked up a few things from training with Jotaro. Turns out Izuku was not wrong about the original floor they were on. However, Ida felt the need to err on the side of caution, and the two of them moved the weapon down a level. The problem was that they had made enough noise while they were moving for Izuku to figure out what they had done. He told Tsuyu to check the 6th floor windows and see which room they had moved the weapon to. He still ended up in a fight with Ijiro though. Even though he was trying to be as quiet as could be, there is no accounting for a can that just happens to be by your feet. Ijiro got the first hit with a shoulder tackle to the stomach. He thought he had Izuku down, but as he was getting up to start attacking, Izuku punched him in the chin. This threw him off long enough for Izuku to get in his stance. While they were squaring up, Tsuyu had found the room with the weapon, and she told Izuku discreetly. He said, "Right, let's do this," but this was so Ijiro wouldn't catch on right way. And when Izuku said that, "Ijiro, you got good spirit there, man. But it won't help you here." The two traded a few blows, before Izuku broke away toward where the weapon was located. As he heard Ijiro warn Ida, he stopped right next to the door where the weapon was housed. Ijiro saw it as a chance to rush him, but it was all a feint. Izuku caught and using a bit of OFA threw Ijiro through the door right at Ida. While surprised by this, Ida reacted quickly and rushed Izuku as well. But underneath his respirator Izuku grinned. He dodged Ida's attack and said, "Go for it, Azui." Out of a corner of the room, Azui rapidly hopped to the weapon, securing it. Hero team wins. With that announcement, the fighting stopped. Neither side was injured. Other than some bruising on Izuku and a black eye for Ijiro. Once they were back in the meeting room, and All Might was saying that Ida and Izuku were the top members in their battle. While some were questioning why he chose both, Momo brought her own insight. Midoriya built a whole plan for getting the weapon, even accounting for the possibility of it being moved. Plus, he made full use of his teammates' capabilities and the fact that the enemy would see him as the greater threat. Ida on the other hand was smart and cautious enough to guess that Midoriya would deduce where the weapon was. And he stayed behind to better protect the objective. All Might's sweat dropped and thought, "Wow, she is intense." Before saying, there were one or two other points, but that was accurate, yes. With that done, let us move on to the next match. I'm skipping a few because we know how a few of them turn out. Think after the Shoto Freeze match and teams G and H fought each other. The next match is Team C versus Team E, with Team C being the villains and E the heroes. Saphentite starts by welding up one of the doors with her finger. While she is doing that, Mineta is unfortunately being Mineta. When she blasts him back with a spell, she tells him, "Are you actually gonna do anything, or are you just here to stare at my butt?" After shaking off the effects of the blast, he says, "Fair enough. Besides, I don't want to take another hit. The problem is that my pop-off ball are easy to spot. It's not like you can just camouflage them, right? Plus, the two we are up against have a lot of offensive power." Saphentite thinks it over for a bit, then snaps her fingers. "What if we make it the obvious trap that fools them?" Mineta thinks over what she said and asks, "Can you make like a net that blends with the ceiling?" With a wave she makes a simple one that should catch them. With that, Mineta starts throwing his pop-off Quirk down one hallway. Even with Ashido's acid it would still take a while to get through them all. And Aoyama can't fire that laser fast enough to get rid of them all. Hopefully anyway. Ow, this is starting to hurt. Maybe I need to work on strengthening my scalp later. As the pair thought their opponents didn't want to go down the ball-covered hallway, so they went down the opposite side. While Aoyama got caught by the net, Mina skated, or slid, right past it. When she had finally melted through the welded-up door, she found nothing. Mineta had thought back to what Ida had done and asked if she could open the ceiling to take the bomb through. Just when Mina was about to backtrack, out of one of the boxes popped Mineta. He stayed behind at Saphentite's suggestion to catch the enemy off guard. And it worked. Mostly. Ashido wasn't going anywhere for a bit, but she still punched Mineta in the face when he landed on her chest. The last match was between Team J and Team F. J would be the heroes and F would be villains. Ochiko was still a bit intimidated by Jotaro, but she knew she had to work with him to win. He seemed to be looking up at the building for some reason. "So. I kinda know what you can do, Shu. Be quiet for a sec." Again, she was off-put by his abrupt statement. She was about to tell him off when he said, "Okay, got M. They're on the 9th floor, northwest side. The bomb is closer to the window. Probably hoping to slow down or drag out with some traps by the door." Okiko is just dumbfounded by all the info he just dropped. She shakes her head and asks, "How do you know that? I thought your power had to do with just super strength." Jotaro shakes his head and tells her, "That's only one part of my abilities. I also have enhanced senses. I could hear them moving the bomb around and I can hear their heartbeats." "Whoa. I guess you don't really need me." Jotaro looked down at her and put a hand on her shoulder. He gave a warm smile and said, "You're actually a big part of the plan I have in mind. You can remove gravity, right?" She looks up at him and nods. "Okay, hop on my back and hold on. We're going up." After she has done just that, she expects that he will super leap them up to the top of the building. Instead, when he leaps it is much shorter. Right below the 9th floor and headed towards the wall. Right when she thinks they are going to crash into it, she sees Jotaro touch the wall and sticks to it. "You might want to remove your own gravity for now. I'll walk us to just below their window." She nods rapidly and uses her quirk on herself. But she also starts to feel nauseous from it. "Hold still," Jotaro says as he pokes a nerve point behind her ear. It isn't a full fix, but it does alleviate some of the trouble. After he has walked the two of them to just under the window, he explains the rest of the plan. "Okay, this will be where I really need your help. I know you can just float for a while, but get ready. I want you to remove my gravity, then wait just above the window. I'm going to push myself to the other building and jump hard enough I crash through the window. Hopefully, I'll be able to catch them both off guard and knock them out of the room. Once I'm done, you should be able to move in no problem and get the weapon." Ochiko is a little surprised he came up with all of this on the spot, but nonetheless agrees. When Jotaro is on the other building, she can see him crouching so he can launch himself. When he does, the result is almost exactly as he predicted. Momo is the first one he grabs. He also ends up dragging most of the traps she had laid to slow him down with them. Sato, who had come in after hearing the commotion, gets caught in the mess as well. Though it's a bit awkward for Momo. Mainly due to the fact that she is now sandwiched between both of the larger men. And they are all wrapped in some of the nets she was going to use. While this is happening, and Momo is freaking out, Ochiko floats in and grabs the weapon. Team J wins. Now we just need to get them out of that mess. When they all arrive back at the meeting chamber, the question of who the MVP was gets overridden by everyone asking how Jotaro did all of that with the wall walking. While he is initially trying to not tell, All Might gives him a stern look as if to say, "I'll tell them if you won't." With a sigh he explains it as, "One of my abilities is to absorb energy. That includes electrical energy. I can't throw lighting or anything, but I can put a charge through my body. And with enough concentration, I can basically magnetize myself to walls. But I don't use it very often." While this starts a wave of questions, Kaminari is the first and asks, "So are you like me and get shorted out when you use too much electricity?" Think you missed the point that I said energy. Not just electricity. I can absorb almost any energy around. It's part of why I'm so strong. Due to solar radiation, my body is extra dense, and my muscles are ridiculously strong. Can we leave some of the questions for another day, please? Young Jotaro is right. You all have other studies to go over. Plus, you should all review what happened during today's matches. With that, have a good day, students. Remember, plus, ultra. And All Might dashes out of the observation room. He is still really cool. But seriously, man, come on. Can you tell us a little more, please? Kaminari asks. In his mind he's thinking, maybe he can both help me figure out how not to short myself out and see if he can help me get a date with Saphantite. Jotaro on the other hand is having none of it. No. I don't like telling everything about my powers. Better to keep some things close to the vest. You heard him. It's not polite to badger someone about a topic they don't want to talk about. Ida says while basically pushing everyone out. Izuku catches Jotaro on the way to the locker room and asks, "You good? You seemed extra tense during the trial, let alone the questioning after." Jotaro sighs and quietly tells Izuku that it was harder than usual to maintain the magnetism to the wall. Hopefully, this doesn't come around to hurt us. Chapter 8. I don't have much of a preamble for this chapter. I'm mostly using it as a filler and slight goof chapter. So, on with the show. No POV. The day after the battle trails, Aizawa gave a quick overview of what he thought about each of the team's performance. For Team A, he complimented how they had planned matters out and had a relative backup plan. But he did have a problem with Izuku basically going at the mission alone for the battle, saying he should work with and rely on his teammates more. Team D had a good plan, but they underestimated their opponent and also relied on one member too much, the main one in this case being Ida. Team B was in a similar situation, Shoto. Team I, he just said that sometimes there is bad luck when it comes to a matchup. Team H also had the problem on relying mostly on Tokoyami to carry the team. Though he praised Koda for trying a few different creatures he was limited to. Team G, he praised the fact that they worked well together but told Kaminari to fix his short-circuit problem. Team C was praised for both setting traps and false leads to fool their opponents. E on the other hand had the fact they went too far ahead without an escape or backup. Team F he said they had the same problem with a bad matchup. And Team J. In his mind he was freaking out a bit that this kid he can't shut down has multiple abilities. Each a bit more intimidating than the last. But he acknowledged that they both pulled roughly equal parts of the plan, though still relying a bit more on Jotaro's capabilities. Once that was out of the way he told them, today you have another important task to do. While everyone was sweating and wondering what they were in store for. Today you pick a class president. Everyone slightly cheered at that and a few were making cases asking to be made class president. Jotaro and Saphentite, however, were both just nonplussed at the matter. How is this an important matter? Then again, I went to a public school. We never really had these kinds of elections. Jotaro mulled over in his mind. As this was happening, Ida shouted above the others, "We should cast votes for who we think would be the best pick." What voting? But we've only known each other for about a day. Everybody will just vote for themselves. A myriad of voices ring out with those types of statements. To which Ida states, and that is why it is a good system. The person who gets the most votes will be the one everyone thinks can do the job. Is that all right, Aizawa-sensei? And Aizawa is just getting back into his sleeping bag. I don't care just so long as you pick someone. Saphentite just thinks, how is this guy an educator again? But while she is doing that, Ida passes out slips of paper to write down their votes. Once the ballots are cast, Izuku sits at the head with 3 votes. While Momo and Ida tie with 2 votes each. While it is unanimous on who the president is, the vice president matter is different. Just as Ida is about to suggest that they re-vote for the 2 of them, Jotaro says, why don't you both just take the VP spot? And before you ask, just take a look at Izuku as is. While Izuku is standing up at the podium with a nervous look on his face, not as bad as the original look but still nervous. He's gonna need more people that support him. And frankly, you two are some of the best planners in the class. With his reason given, they check with Aizawa that it would be okay. Sure, why not? It should be fine. This time Jotaro along with Saphentite think, again, how is he an educator? With that done, the VP slot is held by Ida and Momo with Izuku as the president. As everyone is getting ready to leave, Aizawa stops Jotaro. Can you come to Gym Gamma? There's someone there who wants to meet you. Jotaro is a bit surprised by this, decides to go along. Oh, and change into your gym uniform. With an eyebrow raised as Aizawa walks away, Jotaro says to Izuku and the others, go on ahead. I'll catch up in a bit. With that stated, the ones who were waiting on him head for lunch. After Jotaro has changed and gone to Gym Gamma, which has a handful of concrete pillars raised up, he waits around for a few minutes before saying, okay, I know you're here. Can all 3 of you come out? From behind 2 of the pillars come a young man and woman. The young man has shaggy black hair and pointed ears with a grimace on his face, and the young woman has periwinkle hair and wide happy eyes with a big smile. Wow, how did you know we were here? I thought we hid pretty well. Does it have something to do with your quirk? How did you get so big? You're only a freshman, right? What's with the sunglasses? You're taller than Mirio and seem to be a bit bulkier. Okay, I'm just gonna stop you because if I don't, we're going to be here for a while. Now about you asking if I'm like Mirio, I'm guessing that's the guy behind me, right? The 2 have shocked looks on their faces, but said person decides to break up the tension with a big laugh. Ha ha ha. Man, that is impressive. I had heard that your abilities were different, but to think you knew I was coming before I made my move. The young man, now known as Mirio, stands just a bit shorter than Jotaro and is a bit less bulky. His blonde hair is standing up in the front and has simplistic blue eyes. Anyway, I'm Togata Mirio. This is Hato Nijire and Amajiki Tamaki. We're known in the school as the Big 3, or the top students at the school. Jotaro's eyebrows raise at the mention of that, but he also has a different problem. I'm confused. Why did you want to meet with me? What could the top student have to do with someone who is frankly a bit of a troublemaker? Especially given what happened to Aizawa. Mirio smiles at that and says, that is a bit of why we are here today. Aside from the fact you have been a bit of a troublemaker, I'm here personally to show you that there can always be someone stronger. Again, Jotaro raises his eyebrow at that statement. So, what, you want to fight or something? Mirio's smile increases again before telling him that he may think he has an impressive quirk, but it won't do much good against everyone. He then says the two of them will just have a quick bout and call it a day. At the mention of calling his power a quirk again, Jotaro is disgruntled. But he decides to go along with it. Mirio tells him to head out to a point where he feels comfortable. Once he says he's at his spot, Mirio waits for him to come at him. However, Jotaro doesn't move. Instead, he just waits there about 20 meters away from Mirio. Since you won't come to me, I hope you're ready. With that, Mirio rushes at Jotaro before disappearing into the ground. Should be in about 3, 2, 1. Jotaro steps to the side, avoiding Mirio's attack. The look of shock on all three of their faces is apparent. Though some of that may be due to Mirio being naked. Speaking of which, he dives back into the ground and decides to not take it easy anymore. Try this, Phantom. Menace. Mirio uses the full capabilities of his quirk to attack Jotaro, coming at him from multiple directions. However, Jotaro evades almost every single attack. This shocks them all again, as no one has ever been able to anticipate his strike when he uses that move. Jotaro is still just standing at the center waiting. I think I'll give him a different taste of my capabilities. He's not wrong in thinking that there will always be someone stronger. The problem is his phasing isn't that unusual to me. But he is creative given weakness of quirks as a whole. And he's coming at me again. Okay. Jotaro dodges a few more attacks, but then Mirio manages to get right up under him and land a punch to Jotaro's stomach. He got him. Did you see that? Mirio finally hit him. Nijire says before Tamaki interrupts her with, yeah, but the freshman didn't fall down. Mirio cries out after the hit with, DMN. What are you made of? When I hit you, it was like punching metal. Jotaro just shrugs his shoulders and tilts his head. With that, Mirio decides to get even more serious. He dives back into the ground and moves even faster than before. Jotaro still dodges a lot of the attacks before he decides to finish this. He turns to face Mirio, who goes for a different super, blinder touch eyeball crush. Mirio goes for like he's gonna poke Jotaro's eye, but he isn't prepared for what happens next. Jotaro's head passes through his hand so fast that Mirio can't permeate his head fast enough. He takes a headbutt right between the eyes. And once he's reeling from that hit, Jotaro finishes the fight with a backhand fist smash to Mirio's stomach. The top member of the Big Three gets sent flying before impacting on a pillar unconscious. Neither Nijire nor Tamaki expected this to ever happen. Especially with how much Mirio has trained up his quirk. As they think Jotaro is about to walk to leave, he instead grabs Mirio's gym uniform and brings it over to him. Then he stands to the side and waits. Mirio wakes up after a few minutes but is surprised that the guy who beat him stuck around. I figure I owed you a few explanations once you came to. Jotaro says while Mirio is putting his clothes on. As he is about to start explaining, Nijire pops up again asking a bunch of questions. As well as getting into his personal space. After a few seconds, Jotaro chops her on top of her head. OOOWWW ow ow. What the heck? Oh, calm down. I didn't even hit you that hard. CRP, I lost my train of thought. Jotaro says while shaking his head. Tamiki takes the moment to just ask the big question, what the heck is your quirk? Jotaro is of course annoyed again but takes it in stride. I don't actually have a quirk. And before you ask, I can say that due to the fact it didn't activate when I was young. I was in an accident and a myriad of powers woke up in me at once. Well, so to speak anyway. While they are all completely floored by that explanation, Jotaro continues, you mentioned how it felt like you were punching metal or something when you hit me, right? That's not entirely wrong. One of my basic abilities is to absorb energy. And not just like electricity. Radiation is part of it too, don't freak out. Everyone on Earth absorbs a light amount of radiation every day. While the two of them are confused, Mirio puts it together. The sun. You absorb solar radiation, or rather solar energy. Right. But how does that make your body dense? Do you even realize how dense a sun is? Think of it like this, with just solar energy, it's like I have a mini sun inside my body. Thanks to that, the energy increases my muscle density and strength. There's a limit currently, but still. And since you probably want to know for sure how I tracked you and didn't flinch at the eyeball thing, it's rather simple. I didn't use my eyes. Now this floors all of them again, but Mirio realizes that would explain how he may not have flinched at the whole eye crush. But it doesn't explain how you knew where I was coming from. Even when I picked up my speed, you still seemed to know where I would pop out. Is foresight one of your powers? Jotaro shakes his head before explaining, no. While all of my senses are not only extra strong, but I kinda gained a few other senses when my powers went active. A simple one is the ability to emit a radar-like pulse, so I have a type of clairvoyance around me. But that wasn't how I tracked you underground. I may know how GPR works, but that takes a lot of concentration. And isn't good for the middle of a fight. They all seem to contemplate the application of all of his capabilities, from just tracking a villain, to a search and/or rescue mission. He really did have a lot of applications for just that power alone. Know how I tracked you is due to an interesting ability of mine. I can sense energy. Not just absorb or use it. When you active your power, you let off a light energy wavelength. I'm good enough at memorizing that I can remember an energy field after sensing it once. And I can track its general location and direction. At this, Mirio's eyes widened more than the other members of the big. He never really questioned the fact he could move through objects. That was just how his quirk worked. But this freshman had just told him a bigger part of his power that no one else ever could. It's no wonder you were as confident as you were in fighting me. You probably noticed how I came into the room earlier and remembered my energy state. Plus, if you didn't worry about looking and instead could just sense that I was making parts of myself permeable, you wouldn't worry about me going for your eyes. Jotaro coughs a bit at this but agrees. Nijire is still confused on parts of this freshman's mentality though, and asks, man, that is all kinds of incredible. But why did you stick around? I know you said you owed him an explanation, but most anybody else with a quirk, sorry power like yours would just want to show off and brag they beat the best in the school. But you don't. He looks away at the way Nijire describes what he did and could do. He sighs before explaining that Mirio is right, that there could always be someone stronger out there. There could be someone who has the capability to circumvent his power. But sometimes there is a different mindset for guys like me or All Might. We have insane amounts of power. Enough that people look to us as inspirations at times. We have to limit ourselves, not just because our power could kill easily, but also, because we have to both remind ourselves we're still human, and we have to sometimes remind people about restraint. This little speech has Nijire and impresses Mirio. Tamiki is just facing away from everyone. Before they can keep talking, they hear alarms ring out. It's the intruder alarm. We gotta evacuate. The big three turn to leave, but Jotaro is just standing there. What are you waiting for? We're fine. It's just the press right now. I can hear their annoying chatter. After hearing that, big three calm down. He sniffs the air a bit before thinking about something worrying. But there is a lingering scent of death around. Not sure what that's from. This could be trouble. Speaking of that matter, Izuku was talking with Ida and Ochiko on why he'd been chosen as the president of Class 1A. You saved and inspired me during the entrance exam. You jumped in to help me when everyone else was running away. So, I know you can lead us well. Ochiko said with a light blush. Indeed. You acted as a true hero in that moment. Something. Menace. Mirio uses the full capabilities of his quirk to attack Jotaro, coming at him from multiple directions. However, Jotaro evades almost every single attack. This shocks them all again as no one has ever been able to anticipate his strike when he uses that move. Jotaro is still just standing at the center waiting. I think I'll give him a different taste of my capabilities. He's not wrong in thinking that there will always be someone stronger. The problem is his phasing isn't that unusual to me. But he is creative given weakness of quirks as a whole. And he's coming at me again. Okay. Jotaro dodges a few more attacks, but then Mirio manages to get right up under him and land a punch to Jotaro's stomach. He got him. Did you see that Mirio finally hit him? Nijire says before Tamaki interrupts her with, yeah, but the freshman didn't fall down. Mirio cries out after the hit with, HH. DMN. What are you made of? When I hit you, it was like punching metal. Jotaro just shrugs his shoulders and tilts his head. With that Mirio decides to get even more serious. He dives back into the ground and moves even faster than before. Jotaro still dodges a lot of the attacks before he decides to finish this. He turns to face Mirio, who goes for a different super, blinder touch eyeball crush. Mirio goes for like he's gonna poke Jotaro's eye, but he isn't prepared for what happens next. Jotaro's head passes through his hand so fast that Mirio can't permeate his head fast enough. He takes a headbutt right between the eyes. And once he's reeling from that hit, Jotaro finishes the fight with a backhand fist smash to Mirio's stomach. The top member of the Big Three gets sent flying before impacting on a pillar unconscious. Neither Nijire nor Tamaki expected this to ever happen. Especially with how much Mirio has trained up his quirk. As they think Jotaro is about to walk to leave, he instead grabs Mirio's gym uniform and brings it over to him. Then he stands to the side and waits. Mirio wakes up after a few minutes but is surprised that the guy who beat him stuck around. I figure I owed you a few explanations once you came to. Jotaro says while Mirio is putting his clothes on. As he is about to start explaining, Nijire pops up again asking a bunch of questions. As well as getting into his personal space. After a few seconds, Jotaro chops her on top of her head. OOOWWW ow ow. What the heck? Oh, calm down. I didn't even hit you that hard. CRP I lost my train of thought. Jotaro says while shaking his head. Tamiki takes the moment to just ask the big question, what the heck is your quirk? Jotaro is of course annoyed again but takes it in stride. I don't actually have a quirk. And before you ask, I can say that due to the fact it didn't activate when I was young. I was in an accident and a myriad of powers woke up in me at once. Well, so to speak anyway. While they are all completely floored by that explanation, Jotaro continues, you mentioned how it felt like you were punching metal or something when you hit me, right? That's not entirely wrong. One of my basic abilities is to absorb energy. And not just like electricity. Radiation is part of it too, don't freak out. Everyone on Earth absorbs a light amount of radiation every day. While the two of them are confused, Mirio puts it together. The sun. You absorb solar radiation or rather solar energy. Right. But how does that make your body dense? Do you even realize how dense a sun is? Think of it like this, with just solar energy, it's like I have a mini sun inside my body. Thanks to that, the energy increases my muscle density and strength. There's a limit currently but still. And since you probably want to know for sure how I tracked you and didn't flinch at the eyeball thing, it's rather simple. I didn't use my eyes. Now this floors all of them again but Mirio realizes that would explain how he may not have flinched at the whole eye crush. But it doesn't explain how you knew where I was coming from. Even when I picked up my speed you still seemed to know where I would pop out. Is foresight one of your powers? Jotaro shakes his head before explaining, no. While all of my senses are not only extra strong, but I kinda gained a few other senses when my powers went active. A simple one is the ability to emit a radar-like pulse, so I have a type of clairvoyance around me. But that wasn't how I tracked you underground. I may know how GPR works, but that takes a lot of concentration. And isn't good for the middle of a fight. They all seem to contemplate the application of all of his capabilities from just tracking a villain, to a search and/or rescue mission. He really did have a lot of applications for just that power alone. Know how I tracked you is due to an interesting ability of mine. I can sense energy. Not just absorb or use it. When you active your power, you let off a light energy wavelength. I'm good enough at memorizing that I can remember an energy field after sensing it once. And I can track its general location and direction. At this, Mirio's eyes widened more than the other members of the big. He never really questioned the fact he could move through objects. That was just how his quirk worked. But this freshman had just told him a bigger part of his power that no one else ever could. It's no wonder you were as confident as you were in fighting me. You probably noticed how I came into the room earlier and remembered my energy state. Plus, if you didn't worry about looking and instead could just sense that I was making parts of myself permeable, you wouldn't worry about me going for your eyes. Jotaro coughs a bit at this but agrees. Nijire is still confused on parts of this freshman's mentality though and asks, "Man, that is all kinds of incredible. But why did you stick around? I know you said you owed him an explanation, but most anybody else with a quirk, sorry power like yours would just want to show off and brag they beat the best in the school. But you don't." He looks away at the way Nijire describes what he did and could do. He sighs before explaining that Mirio is right, that there could always be someone stronger out there. There could be someone who has the capability to circumvent his power. But sometimes, there is a different mindset for guys like me or All Might. We have insane amounts of power. Enough that people look to us as inspirations at times. We have to limit ourselves, not just because our power could kill easily, but also, because we have to both remind ourselves we're still human, and we have to sometimes remind people about restraint. This little speech was Nijire and impresses Mirio. Tamiki is just facing away from everyone. Before they can keep talking, they hear alarms ring out. It's the intruder alarm. We gotta evacuate. The big three turn to leave, but Jotaro is just standing there. What are you waiting for? We're fine. It's just the press right now. I can hear their annoying chatter. After hearing that, big three calm down. He sniffs the air a bit before thinking about something worrying. But there is a lingering scent of death around. Not sure what that's from. This could be trouble. Speaking of that matter, Izuku was talking with Ida and Ochiko on why he'd been chosen as the president of Class 1A. You saved and inspired me during the entrance exam. You jumped in to help me when everyone else was running away. So, I know you can lead us well. Ochiko said with a light blush. Indeed. You acted as a true hero in that moment. Something I cannot claim for myself. You reminded me of my brother. And it was proven even more so during our battle trial. Ida said with a nod. Izuku perks up at that and asked who Ida's brother was. The bespectacled teen cleared his throat before noting that his brother was the turbo hero, Ingenium. Whoa. That's the leader of Team Ida 10. Though I guess that makes sense based on your quirk. You have the mufflers just like him. Is it a family thing? Or something similar to mutter? Izuku starts in on a mutter spree about Ida and his family. Only for it to be broken up by Tsuyu patting him on the shoulder. Sorry. What else were we talking about, he says while blushing. A bit of it was why we thought you were a good choice for President Midoriya. I voted for you because of how you planned things out for me during the battle trial. Really? Well, thank you, Azui. Izuku said with a small smile. Though he tried to ignore her asking that he call her Tsu, and focused on his other VP. I'll let you in on something, I think Jotaro voted for you. Izuku says with a light conspiratorial tone. Momo is surprised by this and asked if Izuku was certain. He nodded and said, yeah. It's hard to read him at times thanks to his stature and the glasses. But when you were talking about how I and Ida had earned the MVP, he was paying attention. Ochako then piped up with, and he was a bit impressed by the traps you laid to try and stop him. Even if it didn't work in the end. The heiress looked down and thanked the two for their words. Kirishima meanwhile admitted he had voted for Ida as well. I mean, you built a whole plan that let us be ready for when Azui and Midoriya would show up. You took command when you needed to. Pretty manly dude. Ida was beaming at the compliment sent his way by his teammate. But before he could respond with thanks, the alarm rang out among the students in the cafeteria. An alert noting that there had been an infiltration of the school. Something's off. This doesn't feel like a real infiltration. There's no tension and no extra sounds. Izuku thinks before looking out a window. Oh, you have gotta be kidding. It's just the media. Izuku calls out upon seeing the infiltration in question. He tries to get his fellow students' attention, but no one is listening. Izuku has a moment where he starts to see the world in slow motion. Noting that some people were already being hurt by the panicked mob. And no one was looking in the right direction to know what was really happening. He then spies Ida and notes that he seemed to be coming up with a plan. Ida. If we can get you above the others, do you think you can calm them down? Izuku calls out. The engine Quirk teen was a bit surprised and announced that he could. Izuku nodded and powered up slightly. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to push through easier and get to Ochako. Uraraka, we need you to remove Ida's gravity. I think he can take it from there, he said after pulling her and Momo out from under some of the stampeding students. The gravity girl was surprised and blushing as she was right up against Izuku's chest, but she pushed past that to help where she could. Izuku and Momo used their powers to defend the girl and get her to Ida. And once the young man's gravity was gone, he used his engines to rocket himself to the wall above the exit sign. And then lambasted everyone for the way they were carrying themselves and missing the obvious evidence. You are students of UA High. We all must carry ourselves in a manner that befits our proud academy. After saying that, and a few joking about his exit sign impression, the students start to calm down and even help those who were originally being hurt by the stampede of teens. During afternoon classes, Izuku was proud to continue as the president of 1A and glad to be supported by both of his vices. Once the day is done and everyone is leaving, Jotaro and Sapphitite go to where the faculty are gathered. At a wall of the UA barrier that had been decayed away.